As I drive up the winding mountain road, my knuckles turn white from gripping the steering wheel so tightly. The narrow, winding road makes my heart race with every turn. I keep my eyes focused on the illuminated asphalt ahead, praying that no one hurtles around an oncoming corner. The last thing I need right now is a head-on collision in the middle of nowhere in the dead of night. I'd be missing for days, if not forever. The ravine to my right drops into a dark abyss. If I slid down there, no one but wild wolves would ever find me. Perhaps the forest would reclaim my bones for sure. Not exactly the bright future I thought I would have with a fulfilling career, loving husband, and cherubic children laughing and playing in our backyard. All I ever wanted was a family, and all I got was loneliness. I thought Mark was different. I thought that was what he wanted too. He never said any different when I'd talked to him about our bright future together. He always agreed. We'd even picked out children's names together, goddammit. The darkness created by the tall pines engulfs me, broken only by the pale moonlight filtering through the dense canopy overhead. It's beautiful, in a haunting sort of way. I would appreciate it more if I weren't so utterly lost and emotionally drained. How could I have been so stupid? Driving for hours without a destination and fueled by nothing but anger and heartbreak. I wasn't exactly thinking when I came home to find Mark balls deep in Tanya. The mere thought of his name sends a fresh wave of pain through my chest. 3 years of my life, wasted on a man who couldn't even be faithful. I'd supported him through everything, working overtime to pay the rent and bills while he went back to school to earn his degree. And how did he repay me? By sleeping with his fellow student in our bed. When I saw his pale ass bobbing up and down, framed by Tanya's splayed legs, that was when I saw him for who he really was. Someone who had used me for his own ends. He'd lied about everything. Agreed with me about what I wanted in life, to keep me working hours on end so he could do exactly what he wanted. His words echo in my head. This is for us. We do the hard work now for an easier future. I can work a professional career and you can be at home with our children. We'll have no money worries, baby. We'll be set. All he wanted was an all-expenses-paid ride, while I worked hard and he got his degree easy. I wish I could go back in time and kick my own butt for believing him. Tears blur my vision and I angrily swipe at them with my hand. I refuse to cry over him anymore. He doesn't deserve my tears or my love. I just wish I'd realized that before I threw a suitcase full of clothes into my car and fled the city like a madwoman, leaving everything else behind. I reach for my phone, desperate for some sense of direction or connection to the outside world. No signal, just my luck. 24 hours of angry driving later, I'm in the middle of nowhere, with no idea where I'm going or what I'm doing. I let out a frustrated scream, slamming my hand against the steering wheel. The sound echoes in the confined space of the car, a reminder of how alone I truly am. As I round another bend, a sign catches my eye. "Welcome to Willowbrook," it reads, the white letters against a cheery, bright red background glowing eerily in the moonlight. I've never heard of this place before, but at least it's a sign of civilization. Maybe I can find a gas station or a motel to stay for the night, gather my thoughts, and figure out my next move. At least I hope I can. The night looks dark, and if there's a town nearby, I can't see any lights. Just as I pass the sign, an unusual sensation floods me. The buzz of electricity makes the hairs on my arms stand on end. I shiver, goosebumps erupting across my skin, but the sensation quickly passes. I continue driving, the road winding deeper into the forest. The shadows grow darker, reaching out to swallow me whole. I try to shake off the unease, telling myself it's just my imagination running wild because I'm literally lost in the woods. The road narrows even more, and I find myself holding my breath as I maneuver around a particularly sharp bend. The tires skid slightly on the loose gravel, and my heart leaps into my throat. I grip the steering wheel with palms slick with sweat. I need to find a place to stop soon. I'm in no condition to keep driving, not with my emotions running so high and my mind so clouded. I squint into the darkness, searching for any sign of life or shelter. And then, as if in answer to my silent plea, I see a faint light in the distance. It's warm and inviting, a beacon of hope in the sea of shadows. I press down on the accelerator, eager to reach it. I let out a deep sigh of relief as I finally reach a town the sign promised. The winding mountain road had been a nerve-wracking journey, but the warm glow of the street lamps beckons me forward, promising safety and respite from the shadows that have engulfed me for hours. As I coast along the main street, I marvel at the quaint beauty of this little town. The shop fronts are well maintained, their facades adorned with intricate woodwork and colorful flower boxes spilling over with vibrant blooms. The golden glow of the lamplights casts a warm, inviting hue over the scene, and for a moment, I forget the heartache that led me here. Although it's dark outside, people turn to look at me as I drive by, their curious gazes following my unfamiliar car. I feel a little self-conscious, but then a young girl waves at me from the sidewalk, her face alight with a brilliant smile. The simple gesture puts me at ease, reminding me that this must be a place where kindness still exists. My heart rate returns to normal. As I continue down the street, a neon sign catches my eye. Sally's Diner. The prospect of a hot meal and a place to rest my head is suddenly all I can think about. I pull into the parking lot, the tires crunching over the gravel, and take a moment to take in my surroundings as I step out of my car. The air is crisp and clean, tinged with the scent of pine and earthy moss. It's a stark contrast to the city air I'm used to, and I find myself taking deep, greedy breaths, savoring the refreshing coolness. Through the diner's large windows, I can see people laughing and enjoying their meals. It looks safe, clean, and welcoming, exactly what I need right now. With a deep breath, I gather my courage and make my way inside. The moment I step through the door, a surge of delicious aromas envelops me. It's like a warm embrace, and some of the tension in my shoulders begins to melt away. I'm transported back in time as I step further into the diner. The worn, cherry-red vinyl of the bench seats gleams invitingly, the material creased and cracked from decades of use. The laminate tabletops, a warm honey color, are scuffed and scratched, bearing the marks of countless meals and conversations shared over years. In the corner, a jukebox stand lights up and blinks in time with the gentle melody that fills the air. The tune is familiar, a classic rock ballad that conjures images of poodle skirts and milkshakes shared between sweethearts. I'm a little out of place. My soft, curvy figure is at odds with the athletic builds of the women scattered throughout the diner. Their toned arms and lean frames speak of a life of hard work and physical activity, a far cry from the sedentary lifestyle I've grown accustomed to. The men, too, are broad and rugged, their muscular frames filling out the confines of the booths. They exude a sense of strength and resilience that I find impossible to ignore, a stark contrast to the city dwellers I'm used to seeing. I think back to Mark and the countless times he urged me to join him at the gym, his tone laced with thinly veiled criticism about my body. No matter how hard I tried, shedding the extra weight was always an impossible task, my curves stubbornly clinging to me like an old friend. Here, in this diner, surrounded by these strong, capable people, I feel painfully out of place. My soft edges and rounded hips are a glaring reminder of my own inadequacies, and I shrink in on myself. The conversation lulls as curious stares weigh upon me. A familiar self-consciousness creeps in, and I find myself second-guessing my decision to come inside. But then, a warm maternal voice cuts through the silence. "Y'all mind your own business now," a woman in her 50s chides. Her shoulder-length brown hair is streaked with gray, but her kind face is creased with laugh lines. She beckons me over to the counter with a welcoming smile and ushers me onto a stool at the long counter. Before I can even open my mouth, she's already pouring me a steaming cup of coffee. "You look like you've had a long day, honey," she says, her voice rich with concern. "Thank you." I nod, suddenly aware of how exhausted I truly am. The coffee's aroma is intoxicating, and I wrap my hands around the mug, savoring the warmth that seeps into my chilled fingers. "I'll get you a burger and some fries," the woman says, as if reading my mind. "You've got to be starving after that long drive up the mountain." I blink in surprise, my mouth opening to protest, but she simply winks at me, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "Trust me, sweetheart, anyone who finds their way to Willowbrook arrives hungry." As if on cue, my stomach rumbles, and I realize that I can't even remember the last time I ate. I guess I could eat something. A smile works its way over her kind features. She's as athletic as the rest of the women here, but something about her relaxes me. "I'm more than sure you'll find something in the menu to your tastes here. Now, I'm Sally. Before you ask, yes, I'm the Sally in Sally's Diner. You sit down and relax, and I'll see what I can do about getting you some accommodation." The woman bustles off, calling out the order to the cook in the back, and I take a moment to look around the diner. Despite the initial curiosity of the patrons, they've all returned to their own conversations and meals, a sense of normalcy settling back over the space. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, I allow myself to relax, letting the warmth of the diner seep into my bones. And as I wait for my food, I wonder how she knew I needed somewhere to stay.
I ease the police cruiser down Main Street, the familiar sights and sounds of my hometown washing over me like a soothing balm. Despite having called this place home for as long as I've been alive, its quaint beauty never fails to take my breath away. The rows of meticulously maintained storefronts, their facades adorned with ornate woodwork and overflowing flower boxes, exude a warmth and charm that characterizes Willowbrook. The golden glow of the street lamps cast a soft, inviting hue over the scene, bathing everything in a gentle radiance that tugs at my heartstrings. As I cruise past the town square, the majestic oak tree that has stood as a silent sentinel for centuries catches my eye. Its branches stretch out like welcoming arms, offering shade and respite to the young and old of Willowbrook over the decades. Despite the familiarity of it all, a pang of loneliness lances through me, sharp and insistent. This town, this community that I've sworn to protect, is filled with loving families and mated pairs. Their bonds forged through a deep, unbreakable connection that I can only imagine. I've been a part of countless celebrations, witnessing the joy and contentment that comes with finding one's mate, but it's a happiness that has always eluded me. As the sheriff and alpha to the Longtooth Pack, my life is devoted to protecting our pack and our lands. I take pride in my role, in the sense of purpose it brings me. But there's a part of me that yearns for something more, something deeper. A mate. My mate. The word echoes through my mind, equal parts tantalizing and taunting. For as long as I can remember, I've dreamed of finding that one special person, my perfect match, the one who would make my life complete. But in a world where she-wolves are rare and precious, the odds of finding my mate grows increasingly slim. And as each year that passes that I don't find her, I grow more and more lonely. An ache lingers in my chest, a constant reminder of what's missing from my life. Loneliness. A deep, pervasive loneliness that seeps into my bones, no matter how much I try to ignore it. I've scoured surrounding packlands, venturing far and wide in search of that elusive connection, but each time I've returned home unblessed by the goddess. I don't know what she wants of me, or if there's a path I have yet to go down to find my mate, but I'll do whatever it takes. My wolf is already moving toward growing feral. The stirrings are faint, but they're there. A male wolf who never finds his mate is a feral wolf, walking, and an alpha will be more vicious than any other wolf that could turn feral. At best, I'll be cast out of packlands, resigned to live the rest of my life in my wolf form until I lose my humanity entirely. As alpha, I'll probably need to be culled. I don't want to put my deputy and Beta Zane Matthews through anything like that. Culling males scars souls. I should know. The thought of seeking a mate in the human world has crossed my mind, but the chances of finding a human woman with dormant shifter blood are infinitesimally small. In millions of females across the country, there will only be hundreds with wolf shifter blood running through their veins. Heritage they will have no idea about. They will live and die in ignorance unless they come face to face with their mate. All the while, myself and every male in my packland face the same future. It's something that, as alpha, I need to find the answer to. As a male, I'm desperate to understand why no mates have been found. It hasn't always been that way, and the decline has been slow but steady. Some of my pack think that Willowbrook has been cursed. The Sally's Diner sign casts a warm yellow glow against the dark sky. The urge for a cup of Sally's coffee hits. Comfort, home, exactly what I need. I park the cruiser next to a small, dirt-encrusted Honda Civic, turn the engine off, and step out of the car. I haven't seen that car before. My wolf perks his head up and tips his nose in the air. A scent lingers, but it's faint. I draw in a long lungful, savoring the barely there musky notes before they disappear altogether. Female. My wolf lurches to his feet. Down, boy, I tell my wolf. It's probably just my imagination, brought on by that persistent longing ache. I'm not even sure what I smelt was there, and I don't want to get both of our hopes up to have them come crashing down. It's not the first time I've detected phantom scents in the air. Half the time I think it's because I want my mate so desperately my brain makes sense up to appease me. I take the 4 steps up to the front door when Zane pushes through before I can step over the threshold. I step back and nod as he emerges from the diner, trying to maintain an air of casual nonchalance, despite the growing anticipation thrumming through my veins. As my deputy and beta, he's been witness to my struggle, the constant ache of loneliness that weighs heavily on my soul. Him and me both. A ghost of a frown tugs at his lips as he takes in my tense posture, his brow furrowing in concern. "Everything all right, Mitch?" Before I can respond, another waft of that intoxicating scent drifts through the diner's open door, causing my wolf to lunge. His russet fur rises along my forearms before I push him down, forcing the fur to recede. Not my imagination. "Good," I manage. "We have a newcomer in Willowbrook," he says, his tone laced with excitement. "Sally's got her inside, feeding her up like she always does. That woman would mother the entire world if she could. She treats every lost soul who wanders into town like one of her own, even lost human females." My heart skips a beat at his words. A newcomer. Heat floods my veins as the implications sink in, and I ignore the urge to shove past Zane and barge into the diner like a man possessed. My senses are on fire as I push the question out. The newcomer is female. The newcomer is all female. My growl lodges in my throat at his tone. Zane stills, his eye flaring. "Do you think she might be, that the curse is—" His gaze holds mine, the undercurrent of hope in his tone palpable. I open my mouth to tell him it depends on many things. But the words catch as another potent wave of that alluring scent washes over me. The unmistakable notes of wildflowers and warm summer rain has my wolf sitting up and taking notice. Zane's eyes flare with excitement and hope. Sally's already making inquiries about where she can stay. I suggested the Wolf's Bite. My sister Cindy owns and runs the town's largest hotel, Wolf's Bite. The female will be safe there if she decides to stay. Or if she finds her mate. My blood runs cold at the thought of every male wolf in my packlands brushing past her to scent her. The surge of instinctive possessiveness snaps through me so hard it almost makes me stumble. I focus back on Zane. Before I can formulate a response, a sudden prickling sensation skitters down my spine. The fine hairs on the back of my neck rise. My wolf surges to the forefront of my consciousness, hackles raised and snarling as a wave of alpha awareness washes over me. One of the wards surrounding our packlands has been triggered. As alpha, I'm the only wolf strong enough to withstand the constant power of the magic connected to the wards, and the only wolf on my packlands to feel a breach. In an instant, every muscle in my body coils tight, poised for action. Zane's stance mirrors mine, his expression hardening into one of grim determination as we both scan the surrounding area for any sign of danger. "What is it?" Zane says. "Ward breached northeastern region near Berry Gulf," I say, knowing exactly where the breach is. My senses sharpen, attuned to the disturbance. My wolf prowls restlessly, a low growl rumbling deep within my chest as I prepare to defend our territory from the threat. I clench my jaw, my teeth grinding together as I struggle to maintain control as another waft of the delicious scent filters through the door Zane left slightly ajar. The scent of the female is a siren's call, pulling at me with an irresistible force. My wolf snarls and rages within me, pushing against the confines of my skin. I need to see to the ward, but a needier force drives through me. Have to go inside. Have to know. Zane darts down the steps to the cruiser but pauses when I still hover on the landing. Just a minute, I have to see. I don't finish the sentence. I push through the doors and into the warmth of the diner, and the scent of the newcomer arrows into me. It's unlike anything I've ever encountered before, a tantalizing blend of wildflowers and warm summer rain with an undercurrent of something deeper, something untamed and utterly captivating. My senses snap on high alert as I scan the diner, trying to pinpoint the source of this intoxicating aroma. And that's when I see her. Seated at the counter, a vision of fiery beauty catches my breath in my throat. Long crimson tresses tumble over her shoulders in gentle waves, framing a face that could have been sculpted by angels. Full, pouty lips sip from her coffee mug, and I let my gaze linger on the delicate arch of her neck, the gentle swell of her curves beneath the fabric of her sweater. She's absolutely gorgeous. No wonder the goddess was holding out on me. Good things come to those who wait, but absolutely stunning mates come to wolves who border on feral. It's her eyes that ensnare me, emerald pools of depth and vulnerability that reach into my very soul when she looks up. A crease tightens her brow as she scans the diner, but then she sees me. Her gaze catches on mine. Locks. In that moment, everything else fades into insignificance, and all I can focus on is her, this woman who has managed to awaken the most powerful thing within me. My one ardent want has now impossibly materialized. Mate. Mind. My wolf howls in recognition, a feral, possessive sound that echoes through the depths of my being. Mate. This woman, this captivating creature, is my mate. The other half of my soul that I've been searching for all this time. Suddenly, the world shifts on its axis, and everything I thought I knew is thrown into chaos. All the loneliness and despair that had been weighing me down moments ago evaporates like mist in the morning sun, replaced by a fierce, all-consuming need to claim what is mine. My heart thunders in my chest, the blood roaring in my ears as every part of me yearns to close the distance between us. I force myself to remain still, my muscles coiled tight with the effort of restraint. The savage instincts of my wolf rage within me, and a small voice of reason whispers at the back of my mind. I cannot simply take what I want, not without risking everything we've worked so hard to protect. The ward breach still needs to be addressed, the threat to our territory and our pack assessed and dealt with. And she is a human female with no idea what she's just done, or who we are to each other. I can't rush in and force her to be my mate. She's not a wolf-shifter female, she's human. She'll feel the bond now that I've sighted her, but not as fast as I will. I need to take this slowly or I'll risk losing her altogether. With a monumental effort, I tear my gaze away from the object of my desire to Sally. I nod to her. Set her up at the wolf's bite. Keep her safe. Sally's knowing gaze slides to the female and a soft smile plays on her lips. I don't miss the spark in her eyes when her gaze returns to mine. It's about time. Don't worry, Alpha, leave it with me. My wolf howls in protest, clawing at the edges of my control. He doesn't care a ward was triggered. All he wants is to claim his mate. He doesn't care she's human. He doesn't care that even though she is our mate, she deserves a choice to stay or go. She is my mate, and even if it tears me in half, I'm determined she'll have a choice. With a steely resolve that belies the turmoil raging within me, I bolt out of the diner and into the forest. I pull off my uniform, leaving articles of clothing strewn on the ground behind me, Zane close on my heels. I shift into my giant russet animal and tear through the forest, planting each paw into the earth with determined force and fighting the pull of my wolf that would forego my duty as Alpha and take us back to our mate. My paws pound the loamy forest floor as I race toward the border, every muscle straining with urgency. Zane lopes beside me, his powerful strides matching mine as we navigate the familiar trails that crisscross our territory. Despite the wind whipping past my face, the scent of my mate lingers, torturing me with its alluring promise. My wolf rages within, snarling and snapping, desperate to turn back and claim what is rightfully ours. The instinctual drive to possess her, to mark her as mine, is overpowering. I grit my teeth, digging my claws into the earth as I wrestle for control. As alpha, my duty must come first. The wards have been breached, a threat that cannot be ignored lest it jeopardize the safety of our entire pack. My soul aches to return to that diner, to drink in the sight of her verdant eyes and let myself drown in their depths. I thrum with the need to pull her into my embrace, to bury my nose in the crook of her neck and breathe in her intoxicating scent until it's seared into my very being. A frustrated growl rumbles low in my chest as we near the border with the Ironjaw Pack's territory. Our tensions with Jonah Cooper's pack have been simmering for years, a constant undercurrent of hostility that threatens to boil over at any moment. If I catch any of his wolves trespassing on our lands, there will be consequences, severe ones, and vice versa. Cooper isn't known for his leniency. I cannot afford to show weakness, not with the fragile peace between our packs hanging by a thread. My jaw clenches as we break through the tree line, the border looming before us like an ominous barrier. The wards crackle with ancient magic, their power a tangible force that raises the fur along my hackles. Zane shoots me a sidelong glance, his eyes reflecting the same turmoil that rages within me. As my beta, he understands the gravity of the situation, but he also knows the depth of my newfound connection to my mate. In the distance, the trees rustle with a subtle movement, and my wolf tenses, prepared to unleash his fury upon any threat that dares encroach upon our territory. As the figure emerges from the shadows, a wave of relief washes over me, quickly followed by a surge of frustration. "Damien!" I growl, my tone laced with equal parts exasperation and annoyance. The young wolf shifter freezes in his tracks, his eyes wide and sheepish as he takes in our battle-ready stances. "Alpha," he murmurs, dipping his head in a show of respect tinged with trepidation. I level him with a stern glare, my jaw clenched tight as I rein in my temper. "What have I told you about wandering beyond the wards?" I demand, my voice a low rumble of barely contained authority. Damien winces, his shoulders hunching as he shrinks back from the weight of my reprimand. "I'm sorry, Alpha," he mumbles, his gaze firmly fixed on the ground. "I was just exploring and I lost track of where I was." A muscle ticks in my jaw as I fight the urge to shake some sense into the wayward pup. He's still young, barely into his second decade, but his recklessness and disregard for the rules have been a constant source of frustration. I'll have to have a word with his mother about this. A week or two being grounded from shifting will hopefully make the youngster think again. "The wards are in place for a reason," I growl, my tone brooking no argument. "You know better than to venture beyond them without proper escort and permission. Alpha Jonah will spare you no mercy if he finds you in Ironjaw Packlands, and you know it." Damien nods meekly, his shoulders slumping in acknowledgement of his transgression. With a weary sigh, I wave him off, dismissing him from my presence. "Go home, Damien." As the young wolf scampers off, his tail tucked firmly between his legs, I turn to Zane, my expression a mixture of exasperation and resignation. "Pups," I mutter, shaking my head. Zane's lips twitch with the ghost of a smirk, and he simply nods. We weren't any different when we were Damien's age. Both Zane and I would explore our territory for a week at a time, losing ourselves to our wolves and our instincts, and the delightful scents of the forest. As we make our way back toward the diner, the weight of the female's presence settles over me once more, rekindling the embers of anticipation that had been momentarily doused by Damien's antics. As we approach the diner's entrance, I pause, drawing in a deep, steadying breath, and wrestle my wolf back under my human skin. The air is thick with the female's alluring scent, a heady blend that sets my pulse racing and my mouth watering with barely restrained need. Zane shoots me a sidelong glance, his expression a mixture of curiosity and understanding. With a slight incline of his head, he gestures to the diner's entrance, a silent invitation to lead the way. My heart thunders in my chest as I steel my resolve, pulling the mantle of Alpha around me like a well-worn cloak. This is it, the moment I've been waiting for, the potential crossroads that could forever alter the course of my life. With a deep, steadying breath, I step forward, pushing through the diner's doors and into the unknown, my wolf howling in anticipation of what lies ahead. Instead, all I see is that the stool where my mate had been sitting is now vacant.
I savor every bite of the juicy burger and golden fries that Sally placed in front of me, my taste buds rejoicing at the simple yet delicious flavors. It's been too long since I've had a proper meal. The last few days a blur of mindless driving and tasteless fast food consumed on the road. I worked too many overtime hours and skipped too many meal times while I struggled to afford a New York life supporting 2 people. Getting home at midnight and up at 6 in the morning to do it all again meant I didn't often think about dinner or breakfast, and just grabbed a coffee and bagel before I hit the subway. Mark didn't exactly supply the cupboards with food or snacks either. It's amazing I still have the curves I do. As I eat, my gaze darts around the cozy diner. Conversation has started again, and I don't feel like the center of attraction in a circus as I finish my meal. The 2 cups of coffee I drank and hours on the road has me seeking the ladies' restroom. I'm returning to my seat at the counter when the diner's front door swings open, the bell above it tinkling merrily. I glance up at the pull in my gut, my gaze instantly snagging on the figure who strides through the entrance. He's huge, easily over 6.5 feet tall, with broad shoulders that seem to take up the entire doorway. His movements are fluid, almost predatory as he scans the diner with sharp, assessing eyes. Even from a distance, I make out the chiseled planes of his face and the strong jawline dusted with a day's worth of stubble that only serves to enhance his rugged appeal. I recognize him as the same man who came in before and then left. The man who had me instantly physically reacting. It's his eyes that truly ensnare me, piercing and intense, the color of molten gold flecked with streaks of emerald, and they're locked once more on me. The world grinds to a halt, the ambient chatter and clatter of dishes fading into white noise. In this moment, I'm the only person in the room, the sole focus of his scorching appraisal. A frisson of awareness skitters down my spine, raising goosebumps in its wake, and I have to resist the urge to squirm under the weight of his heated stare. There's something feral about the way he looks at me, his gaze raking over my features with a hunger that borders on primal. Heat blooms in my cheeks, and I quickly avert my eyes, my heart thundering in my chest as a confusing riot of emotions swirls within me. Desire, trepidation, and a healthy dose of self-preservation all vie for dominance, leaving me unmoored and off balance. This is ridiculous, I chide myself, taking a long pull from my water glass in an effort to regain some semblance of composure. I'm running from one disastrous relationship, not seeking out another entanglement, especially not with a man who exudes such a potent aura of danger and raw masculinity. And yet, even as I try to convince myself, I can't seem to shake the visceral reaction his presence has elicited. Every nerve ending in my body has been set ablaze, and I have to resist the urge to run my tongue over my suddenly dry lips. I tear my gaze from him. Get a grip, Sarah. You're not some swooning schoolgirl, for God's sake. You're a grown woman, albeit battered and bruised by life, but still standing. You don't need a man, especially not one who looks like he could devour you whole without breaking a sweat. But even as I try to convince myself of that fact, a treacherous part of me whispers that maybe, just maybe, being devoured by this particular man wouldn't be such a bad thing. I nearly choke on my spit as the errant thought flits through my mind, unbidden and entirely inappropriate. What is wrong with me? I've barely been in this town for an hour, and already I'm entertaining fantasies about the local law enforcement? All of a sudden, his expression twists into a grimace of pain. His eyes squeeze shut, the cords of muscle in his neck standing out in stark relief as he battles some invisible force. Concern flickers through me, momentarily overshadowing the simmering awareness. My gaze darts around, but no one else seems to notice the pain this man is in, or seems to care. Before I can make a move, his eyes snap open and the raw intensity in their molten depths nearly steals my breath away. There's something feral, something primal lurking there, a hunger so potent it makes my knees go weak. He steps back away from me with jerky, aborted movements, his massive frame seeming to swell and expand with each passing second. Muscles ripple and bunch beneath the confines of his uniform, straining against the fabric as if he's struggling to contain some immense, untamed force. The air around him crackles with tension. Something isn't right, that much is clear, but before I can do more than open my mouth, he turns on his heel and bolts away for the second time. In the blink of an eye, he's at the door, his broad shoulders filling the frame as he pauses for the briefest of moments. I hold my breath, unsure of what to expect, but nothing could have prepared me for what happens next. With a guttural sound that sends shivers racing down my spine, he wrenches open the door and hurls himself through the opening, his powerful frame propelling him down the steps with a speed that is almost inhuman. The door slams shut behind him with a resounding bang, the entire diner seeming to shudder in his wake. He passes his deputy, a muscular man with a grim set to his jaw, who bolts after him with the same feral grace as the sheriff. They disappear into the tree line that borders the edge of town without a backward glance. The conversation in the diner is hushed, as though people are afraid to talk too loudly. It's Sally who finally breaks the spell, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. She shakes her head as a wry smile tugs at the corners of her lips. "Looks like magic has returned to Willowbrook." Her words snapped the other patrons out of their collective daze, and the diner erupts into a cacophony of hushed whispers and speculative glances. But I barely register them, my mind still reeling from seeing the massive sheriff. He looked as though something was trying to break out of his skin, but there's no way that could be possible. Sally slides onto the stool opposite me, her movements unhurried and her expression one of genuine concern. "Is the sheriff okay?" I want to know what she means by Willowbrook and magic, but I keep that to myself. "I've gotten in touch with Cindy, the owner of the Wolf's Bite, for you," she says, her voice warm and inviting, and not answering my question at all. I open my mouth to tell her she needn't have arranged anything on my behalf, but something in her gaze gives me pause. It's not pity or judgment I see there, but rather a deep understanding, as if she can sense the weariness that weighs heavily on my soul. I'm not usually comfortable in strangers' presences. In fact, it takes me a hell of a long time to let people in, but Sally is different for a reason I can't put my finger on. Then again, my internal radar is more than likely off. I thought Mark was different, but evidence with Tanya has proven me wrong. Before I can find words, she reaches across the table and pats my hand, her touch gentle yet reassuring. "She's got a room all set up for you, for as long as you need it." A lump forms in my throat as gratitude washes over me, threatening to overwhelm me with its intensity. "Thank you, but I'll only need it for tonight." The thought of getting back into my little Honda Civic almost brings me to tears, but being with people I'm comfortable with is another level of unease. I don't understand why, and I don't like not knowing. No, it's much better to be out of here in the morning. I just want to run and keep on running until I can go no further. Sally shakes her head, her lips curving into a knowing smile. "Nonsense, sweetheart. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. Willowbrook has a way of drawing in those who need a little healing, and something tells me you could use a haven for a while." The idea is tempting, almost painfully so, but I can't. I won't. Still, I find myself nodding, offering Sally a small, hesitant smile. "Thank you," I repeat, the words heavy with sincerity. I don't know what to say. "No need to say anything, dear," Sally replies, patting my hand once more before rising to her feet. "Just take care of yourself and let Willowbrook look after the rest. I have a good feeling about you being here." I don't want to burst her bubble, so I smile and say nothing. She scribbles down an address on a napkin and slides it across the table toward me. That's where you'll find the wolf's bite. Cindy will be waiting for you in the foyer. I chuckle at the unusual name, shaking my head in amusement. Wolf's bite? That's certainly an interesting name choice. Sally simply winks at me, a mischievous glint in her eye. You'll see, honey. This town will no doubt surprise you. I gather my belongings, leave money on the table to cover the meal, and make my way out to my car, the address tucked safely in my pocket. I'll have to see how much is in my account, but I still have no reception on my phone. I'll need to call the bank in the morning and make sure to take Mark's name off my account. Sally's directions are clear and concise, and it doesn't take me long to locate the hotel, nestled amidst a charming array of cottages and flowering gardens. As I pull into the parking lot, a sense of wonder washes over me. The Wolf's Bite is a vision straight out of a fairy tale, a quaint two-story building constructed of weathered stone and timber, with a thatched roof and ivy-covered walls. Flower boxes overflow with a riot of colorful blooms, and a well-tended garden surrounds the property, lush and inviting. It's a far cry from the sterile, impersonal hotels I've grown accustomed to, and I find myself captivated by its rustic charm. Taking a deep breath, I grab my overnight bag from the back seat and make my way toward the entrance, my footsteps crunching on the gravel paths that wind through a well-tended garden. As I approach the heavy oak door, it swings open, revealing a woman who I presume is Cindy. She's tall and willowy, with long chestnut hair that falls in gentle waves around her face. Her smile is warm and inviting, her green eyes sparkling with mischief as she takes me in. "You must be Sarah," she says, her voice rich and melodic. "Welcome to the Wolf's Bite. I've been expecting you." "Ah, thank you." "Sally said she called ahead to book me in," I say. Cindy laughs. "You'll get used to Sally. She's like the town's pseudo-mother, a real sheep in wolf's clothing, know what I mean?" I nod, but I don't really know what she means, and I'm too tired to think. Everything comes crashing over my head, and I'm finding it hard to put one foot in front of the other. "Come on, I'll get you to your room, and I can tell you all about Willowbrook tomorrow." I nod gratefully, the weight of my fatigue settling deeper into my bones with each passing moment. Cindy ushers me inside the charming building, and I can't shake the strange sense of familiarity that washes over me. It's the same inexplicable pull I felt toward Sally, a warmth and ease that envelops me like a well-worn blanket. As we climb the stairs to the second floor, Cindy keeps up a steady stream of gentle chatter, filling me in on the history of the Wolf's Bite and the various amenities it has to offer. But, if I'm being honest, her words wash over me in a soothing haze, my mind too muddled and weary to fully process the details. All I can focus on is the promise of a soft bed and the chance to escape into the oblivion of sleep, if only for a little while. Cindy doesn't linger once we reach the door to my room. With a warm smile and a gentle pat on the arm, she hands me the key and wishes me a good night's rest, leaving me to my own devices. As soon as the door clicks shut behind her, I let out a long, shuddering breath, the weight of the day's events crashing down upon me. My bag slips from my shoulder, landing on the plush carpeting with a muffled thud as I take in my surroundings. The room is cozy and inviting, with a queen-sized bed draped in crisp linens and a plush duvet. A small sitting area nestled in the corner beckons with overstuffed armchairs and a quaint little coffee table, while a door leading off to the side hints at an in-seat bathroom. It's a far cry from the sterile, impersonal hotel rooms I've grown accustomed to, and I can't help but feel a sense of relief wash over me. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, I can allow myself to relax, to let my guard down and simply exist without the weight of the world bearing down upon me. With movements fueled by sheer force of will, I strip out of my clothes, leaving a trail of discarded garments in my wake. As I reach for the well-worn t-shirt and sleep shorts tucked away in my bag, a pang of bitterness lances through me. These were the clothes that Mark had deemed unacceptable, his sneering words echoing in my mind like a cruel taunt. "You're too fat to wear that, Sarah. It's unflattering and makes you look like a slob." Tears prick my eyes as I remember the sting of his words, the way they had cut me to the core and reinforced every insecurity I've ever harbored about my body. But as I slip into the soft, worn fabric, I can't help but feel a sense of defiance well up within me. No more. I'm done letting his cruelty dictate how I live my life, how I view myself. These clothes are comfortable, familiar, and they're mine to wear however I damn well please. With a newfound sense of determination, I crawl beneath the plush duvet, reveling in the way the mattress seems to mold itself to my curves. Exhaustion weighs heavily upon me, and within moments, I drift off into the welcoming embrace of slumber. But even as the tendrils of sleep claim me, my dreams take on a strange, unsettling quality. I find myself running through a dense forest, the trees looming overhead like silent sentinels as I weave between their gnarled trunks. The sound of howls echo all around me, haunting and untamed, and send shivers of fear racing down my spine. I can sense them closing in, these unseen hunters, their hot breath ghosting against my neck as they draw ever nearer. Just as I feel the first brush of fur against my skin, the dream shifts, and suddenly, a massive russet wolf lopes beside me. He's magnificent, with a thick coat that glows in the dappled sunlight and intelligent eyes that regard me with an intensity that borders on reverence. As our gazes lock, that same inexplicable sense of familiarity washes over me, a bone-deep recognition that steals my breath away. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the dream shatters, and I'm jolted back into wakefulness, my heart thundering in my chest and my body drenched in a cold sweat. For a disorienting moment, I can't catch my breath, the weight of the dream lingering like a shroud around my shoulders. But gradually, reality reasserts itself, and I become aware of the soft mattress beneath me, the gentle caress of the morning sunlight filtering through the curtains. With a groan, I roll onto my back, scrubbing a hand over my face as I try to make sense of the jumbled images and sensations that still cling to the edges of my consciousness. What the hell was that all about? Before I can dwell on it further, my body calls for its morning coffee. With a sigh, I throw back the covers and swing my legs over the side of the bed, my mind already turning toward the prospect of finding some much-needed sustenance. I look around the room and can't remember what Cindy said about amenities, and my stomach falls when I don't see anything in the room. Maybe there's a central kitchen where guests can help themselves, somewhere along the corridor? As I make my way to the door, I can't help but feel self-conscious. I'm only dressed in my sleep clothes, but one glance outside tells me it's early. Probably too early for other guests to be up, and 1 cup is all I need before I step in the shower and leave town for another day on the road. I pause with my hand on the doorknob, steeling my resolve before pulling it open and stepping out into the empty corridor. It feels strange, but the need for coffee before leaving town and driving all day is too overwhelming. I'll need a dose of caffeine in my system before I do that, and preferably as strong as possible. I pad down the silent corridor, my arms instinctively crossing over my chest as a self-conscious flush steals over me. The thin fabric of my sleep shirt does little to conceal the pebbling of myself in the cool air, a fact that has my teeth sinking into my lower lip as I try in vain to preserve some sense of modesty. It's a futile effort, I know, but old habits die hard. Years of Mark's sneering comments and disdainful glances have left their mark, eroding my confidence and cementing the belief that my body is something to be ashamed of, something to be hidden away from prying eyes. "Those boobs are obscene," he'd sneer, his gaze raking over my ample curves with undisguised disgust. "Can't you do something about them? They're gross." The memory sends a fresh wave of bitterness washing over me, and I have to fight back the urge to curl in on myself, to shrink and disappear from sight. How did I not see who he was before that night? Still, the silence of the empty corridor is unnerving, and I can't help but wonder if I'm the only guest currently occupying the hotel. The thought is both reassuring and unsettling, a strange dichotomy of emotions that leaves me feeling off-kilter and adrift. As I round the corner and descend the stairs to the main floor, The rich, inviting aroma of freshly brewed coffee assaults my senses, sending my taste buds into a frenzy of anticipation. My steps quicken, driven by a need for that first, glorious hit of caffeine to kickstart my system. The scent grows stronger as I near what I assume must be the kitchen. Without a second thought, I grasp the handle and push open the door, already envisioning the steaming mug of bliss that awaits me. What I'm not prepared for is the sight that greets me. He's leaning against the counter, one hand curled around a mug of his own as he stares out the window, his broad back to me. Even from this angle, his presence is undeniable, a palpable force that fills every inch of the room with a suffocating intensity. As the door swings open, he tenses, his shoulders squaring as he turns to face me, and then our gazes collide, and the world shifts on its axis. Heat blooms in the pit of my stomach, an insistent ache that has my thighs clenching instinctively as desire courses through my veins like liquid fire. For a moment, we simply stare at each other, the air between us crackling with a tangible tension. His gaze rakes over me, lingering on the curves barely concealed by my skimpy sleep clothes. And it's not disgust that flares in the depths of his eyes, it's heated interest. A flush creeps up my neck and into my cheeks. Part of me wants to shrink away, to flee from the intensity of his regard and the confusing riot of emotions it stirs within me. But another part, a deeper, more rudimentary part, wants nothing more than to step closer, to bask in the scorching heat of his presence and surrender to the raw need that simmers beneath the surface. "Oh, I'm so sorry, I was looking for—" Just as I'm about to turn and bolt, to retreat to the safety of my room, he moves. It's a subtle shift, a mere flexing of his powerful frame, but it's enough to stop me in my tracks. "Good morning," he rumbles, his voice a deep gravelly baritone that reverberates in the very depths of my soul. The words are innocuous enough, a simple greeting, but the way he says them, the weight and timbre of his tone, transforms them into something else entirely. A promise, perhaps, or a challenge. I swallow hard, my throat suddenly dry as I struggle to find my voice. "I didn't mean to intrude, I was just looking for—" I manage, the words emerging as a breathless rasp. My gaze skitters around. The kitchen is cozy, with plates and jars scattered over a bench bulging with food. His lips quirk, a ghost of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth as he regards me with those smoldering eyes. His gaze drops to my lips, lingering there for a heartbeat before flicking back up to meet my eyes. "Let me guess, coffee?" Oh God, he's gorgeous. This isn't a guest kitchen, is it? I'll go back to my room, I guess. I didn't see the kettle or amenities in there. I'm mortified. I need to get out of here, and yet my feet remain glued to the floor. Through sheer force of will, I move 1 foot over the threshold. No, stay. I'm hit with words that hold weight, and I can't move another inch. It's not a request, but a command, one that resonates deep within me. Dominant. That's the right word. I don't understand why I think that, but it sits on his shoulders with the weight of rightness. Suddenly, the room seems far too warm, the air too thick. Around me is a fragrance of a field filled with wildflowers. And that scent is coming from me. I've never smelt like this before. Mark always said I smelled of stale sweat. Well, what did he expect when I worked 16 hours a day? But the sheriff's nostrils flare, and all thoughts of Mark disappear. My stomach churns, delicious thoughts of the sheriff vanishing. "What were you thinking just then?" he says. I blink up at him, stunned by the sudden shift in his demeanor, from sultry to skull-crushing in a millisecond. "What?" He straightens, pushing away from the counter and taking a single, deliberate step toward me, and I'm aware of his heady blend of sandalwood and musky masculinity. "You were distressed. Tell me who I have to put in line to make it right." No one. Nothing. There's no way he could know what I was thinking, and the last thing I'm going to do is have a conversation with a stranger about the man who ripped my heart out. As he leans in, his breath ghosts over the shell of my ear, sending shivers racing down my spine. It will never be nothing. not with you," he rumbles, his voice a low, sensual purr that vibrates to the depths of my core. His broad frame towers over me as he reaches past to grasp the handle of the coffee pot. Our bodies are inches apart, the heat radiating from him scorching my bare limbs. The power in those coiled limbs throbs with a leashed strength that makes my mouth water. He pulls back, his smoldering gaze holding mine captive as he pours a steaming mug of coffee and extends it toward me. "Here. Drink. You're welcome to come in here and have as many cups as you like, as well as anything you might want to eat." This man is dangerous. He's a force of nature that could sweep me up and consume me whole if I let him, and yet even as every rational part of me screams to turn and run, I don't. Interest burns through me, because deep down, I know I want to be consumed. I want to surrender to the flames and let them burn me to ashes, if only to experience his touch. His possession. Something inside me clicks into place at the desire, a part of me I never knew existed and would never have known was there if not for coming face to face with him. Only him. I take the mug and our fingers brush. Electricity zaps up my arm, my breath stutters and my heart lurches into a frenzied gallop. His eyes blaze with triumph, a wolfish grin tugging at the corners of his sensual mouth as he drinks in my reaction. And in that moment, I know that I'm well and truly lost, and if I don't leave town in the next hour, I might never have the strength to leave.
I couldn't stay away from the wolf's bite, not when my entire essence was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. From the moment I laid eyes on her in the diner, something raw and instinctual awoke within me, a force so powerful it threatened to consume me whole. "My mate," the words echo through my mind, reverberating deep within the recesses of my soul. She's here, finally, breezing into Willowbrook, as near impossible as that is. The wolf's bite was the easy choice for Sally to send her. My sister Cindy runs it even when there aren't many guests, least of all humans who find their way here, and none in the past 20 years. There were always a trickle of humans with wolf-shifter blood who would find our town, but for some reason, that trickle slowed to a stop. Sarah is the only new female to arrive here in years, which makes her appearance more than remarkable. The urge to whisk her away from the wolf's bite, to covet her in my bed in my own lodgings, is overwhelming. I have to play this right, because the consequences of scaring my mate away is too big to mess up. Cindy laughed when she found me waiting in the hotel's kitchen at the crack of dawn, demanding to know the female's name, that knowing glint in her eye telling me she was already aware of the significance of our newest guest. News travels fast in a town like Willowbrook, especially when it involves the alpha and his potential mate. And Sally. The entire pack is buzzing with speculation. There had been witnesses at the diner, those who had seen the way my control nearly slipped the moment my gaze locked onto her. Tongues are wagging, theories flying as to the identity of this mysterious woman who woke such a primal response in me. Some whisper that she must be my destined partner, the missing piece of my soul that I've searched for all my life. They're right, of course, but until I have the chance to tell her myself, to explain the intricacies of our world and the bond that has already begun to form between us, I'll keep her identity a closely guarded secret. As the sound of footsteps echo from the hallway, my entire being goes on high alert, every sense attuned to the tantalizing promise of her presence. And then she appears in the doorway, and it's as if the world itself grinds to a halt. She's even more breathtaking up close, her fiery tresses tousled from sleep and her soft and hazy eyes. The soft, worn fabric of her t-shirt clings to her curves, leaving little to the imagination, and I have to clench my jaw to keep from growling possessively at the sight. But it's not just her physical beauty that ensnares me. It's the haunted vulnerability that clings to her like a shroud, a sadness that tugs at the protective instincts of my wolf. I ache to know what could have put such sorrow in those captivating eyes, what could have dimmed the light that should shine so vibrantly from within her. As she takes me in, her gaze roaming over my frame with a mixture of curiosity and something far more raw, my wolf perks to attention. He's eager, impatient to claim what is rightfully ours, to pull this extraordinary woman into our embrace and never let go. Don't scare her off. This is too important. We can't rush this, can't risk scaring her away before we have a chance to explain who she is to us. My wolf grumbles his displeasure, but he acquiesces, simmering beneath the surface as I turn my focus back to the vision before me. I hand her a cup of coffee, her intoxicating scent washing over me, a heavy blend of wildflowers and warm summer rain that has my wolf straining at the leash. She thanks me. She doesn't know I'd feed her by hand if she'd just let me. Every bite of every meal for the rest of her life. My gaze is locked on those plump lips, sealing around the rim in a way that turns my blood to lava. Images of those same lips wrapped around my aching flesh assault my mind, and I have to bite back a guttural groan. Get a grip. You're being as much of an idiot as your wolf, Stokes. I force my gaze away from the tempting sight before me. Before I can offer myself intimately like that, she has to understand the true nature of our bond. She must embrace her place at my side as my mate, my forever. But first she has to accept that the only reason she's my mate is that she also has wolf-shifter blood running through her veins, which she'll be totally ignorant of. I need to be patient and tread with care. I don't want to scare her off, because if it comes down to it and she really wants to leave, I'll let her. I will never force my mate to do anything she doesn't want, and that includes accepting me as her mate. I was actually hoping to speak with Cindy, she says after taking a fortifying sip of her coffee. I need to check out and be on my way. Have you seen her? The words are like a physical blow, stealing the breath from my lungs as a wave of pure panic washes over me. She can't leave. Not without the time for me to offer us a chance. A strangled sound comes out of my mouth, one I quickly shut off when she starts to look nervous. Is everything all right? I ask, struggling to keep my tone even and measured. If there's an issue with your accommodations, I can have it addressed immediately. Her brows knit and a spark of something flickers through her eyes. There's no issue. I just didn't plan on staying more than one night, and I think Sally booked me in for a few days. But why the rush to leave? The words tumble from my lips before I can stop them, laced with a desperation that I instantly regret. Willowbrook is a peaceful place. There's lots to explore, including me. Thank you, but it's better for me to keep moving. She regards me for a long moment, her gaze roaming over my body, and a line forms between her brows. I know why she's confused. She's fighting her nature. The knowledge gives me a boost. Even with this short time together, our bond is winding its path into her heart and soul. All I need is a little more time, and to keep us together. My wolf snarls in protest, railing against the very notion of letting our mate slip through our fingers, but I force him back, tempering my instincts with reason and logic. We'll only ever have one mate. She's it for us, forever. She's so valuable, so precious, and she has no idea. She will soon, my wolf grumbles. Yes, soon. If you don't push too hard. I incline my head in acquiescence, offering her a small, reassuring smile. I don't feel. I understand, I lie, the words tasting like ash on my tongue. At least stop by the diner and let Sally pack some food for you. The next town is more than a few miles away, and I don't want you to go hungry. Her hand splays over the slight curve of her abdomen. She's plush, soft, so sexy in those brief clothes she's almost wearing. But it's the halting gesture, the way her fingers clench in the hem of her t-shirt that she tugs away from her curves as though she's trying to hide herself from me, that has me frowning. Is everything okay, Sarah? My voice contains more than a touch of my wolf's growl. Her eyes flare wide and her lips part. Shit, I should have not sounded like that, but I can't stand to see her look shrunken in on herself, as though she's less than, when in reality, she's a goddess. How do you know my name? She asks. I know her name because I damn well demanded it from my sister when I turned up here before dawn. I'm the sheriff. I asked Cindy to give it to me. I like to keep people safe around her. It's quite the wilderness out there, I offer, holding my breath to see if she accepts my words. Oh, well, thank you, I guess. "That's very hospitable of you," she says, and I'm worried because she still wears that frown. I smile at her, delighting in the way her pupils dilate and her delicate scent fragrances the air. We're a small town. It's my job to make sure everyone stays safe. That at least is the truth. In that case, could you tell me where the garage is? I'll need to fill up with gas before I leave, she says. I give her directions over the rocks in my mouth, while my mind spins with ways to keep her here. She offers me a small, hesitant smile. "Thank you for the directions and the coffee, Sheriff." She turns, the door closes behind her, and she's gone. My wolf snarls, not liking her out of his sight where he can't protect her, but I settle him down. She might be gone for now, but she's still not gone for good.
I all but flee from the kitchen, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. I still feel the weight of his searing gaze upon me, as if the sexy sheriff had the power to strip me bare and lay my secrets exposed. Except one secret in particular remains firmly cloaked, hidden beneath the layers of damp cotton that cling to my thighs. Because despite my best efforts, despite every ounce of willpower I could muster, I couldn't stop the visceral reaction that his presence elicited. Pure, potent male power would be words I'd use to sum him up, and even they wouldn't be enough. I've ruined my panties just from the simple act of standing in the same room as him, breathing in his intoxicating scent and drinking in the raw masculinity that radiates from his every pore. Heat floods my cheeks at the realization, and I quicken my pace, desperate to put as much distance between us as possible. I've never been so utterly undone by a man before, never felt such all-consuming need that borders on the animalistic. Part of me, the part that still clings to the remnants of logic and reason, screams at me to run, to flee this town and the dangerous temptation. I've barely managed to extract myself from one disastrous relationship. Do I really want to risk plunging headfirst into another, especially with a man who exudes such an aura of danger and raw, unbridled passion? Another part of me, a treacherous wanton side that's newly awoken, tells me to surrender. And why the hell am I even thinking relationships at all? The guy just gave me a cup of coffee, not an engagement ring. I long to bury my face in the crook of his neck, to breathe in the heady musk that clings to his sun-kissed skin, to press myself against the hard planes of his body and let him take me. Claim me. Make me his in every sense of the word, and hell if that doesn't send another wave of goosebumps breaking across my skin. But then, the image of Mark's bobbing bare butt appears in my mind, a timely reminder of my own foolishness. Anger surges through me, hot and caustic, burning away any lingering tendrils of desire. How could I have been so blind, so naive? How could I have given Mark not only my heart, but my trust, my loyalty, only to have it all thrown back in my face? I should know better than that. I can only trust men as far as I can throw them, and as a curvy 5.5-foot woman who hasn't had time to set foot in the gym in years, that isn't far. As the sting of betrayal and humiliation washes over me, the fury that has been simmering beneath the surface erupts in a blinding flash of white-hot rage. In that moment, I make a decision born of pain and heartbreak, but also of a newfound determination to never again be so blindsided. I will leave this town just as I planned. I will pack my suitcase and hit the road, putting as many miles as possible between myself and the temptation of the sheriff. Because, as alluring and intoxicating as he may be, I won't be drawn in by another man. Not again. Never again. With a renewed sense of purpose, I make my way back to my room and begin gathering my things, my movements sharp and efficient. After a quick shower, I stuff my clothes haphazardly into my suitcase, not caring if they become wrinkled or creased in the process. All that matters is getting out of here, putting this strange little town and the dangerous allure of the man in charge behind me. Self-preservation at its best. I don't even know where I'll go. It's not like I have many choices. I can't knock on a relative's door and ask to stay for a while. All I can hope for is to find another hotel as nice as this one. Keep driving until I find a place I can see myself staying for a while. It's the one and only benefit of truly being alone in the world. As I sling the bag over my shoulder and make my way to the front desk, I catch sight of Cindy's expectant gaze, her green eyes shining with a disappointment that I can't quite place. "Checking out already?" she asks, her tone laced with curiosity and concern. I nod, forcing a tight smile onto my lips as I fish in my pocket for my credit card. The room was lovely, but I really should be on my way. The words taste like ash on my tongue, a lie so blatant that even I can hear the hollowness behind them, but I push forward nonetheless, handing Cindy my card and waiting for her to process the payment. Except it doesn't go through. She frowns, her brow wrinkles as she tries again, only to be met with the same error message. That's strange. Let me try something else. But no matter what she tries, the result is the same. My card is declined, leaving me with a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach that has nothing to do with the embarrassment of the situation. As the realization hits me, a wave of dread washes over me, icy tendrils of fear snaking their way through my veins. Oh God, what if Mark... The thought is too horrible to contemplate, but as Cindy shoots me a look of genuine concern, I know that my worst fears have been realized, and without phone reception, I can't access my bank account to conform. I swallow over the boulders in my throat. I think my ex has cleaned me out. I don't think I can pay for my room. The admission hangs heavy in the space between us, a damning truth that leaves me feeling exposed and vulnerable. I brace myself for the inevitable, the dismissive wave of the hand, the curt instruction to gather my things and be on my way. But it never comes. Instead, Cindy's expression softens, her lips curving into a reassuring smile as she reaches across the counter to give my hand a gentle, comforting squeeze. "Oh, honey, don't you worry about a thing. We'll get this sorted out. You'll see. My brother, Mitch, will help." Why would her brother help, and who even is her brother? Before I can protest, she's already picked up an antiquated CB radio and is calling someone who answers almost immediately. I recognize the sultry masculine tones, and a fresh wave of dread oozes through me. Cindy's brother is the sheriff, the man whose very presence sets my soul and panties ablaze with desire and trepidation in equal measure. "It's okay, he doesn't have to help," I stammer. "I didn't tell him you needed help. He'd tan my hide until it shone, and I like my hide the color it is, thank you very much," Cindy says. A smile teases her lips, and I think, I'm missing something huge when the sheriff's muscular form appears in the doorframe. His gaze immediately finds mine, and, just like that, a sob tears itself from my throat, raw and guttural, as every ounce of fear, uncertainty, and humiliation comes crashing down upon me in a tidal wave of emotion. I don't stop to wonder how he got here so fast. Had he even left? I curl in on myself, my arms wrapped protectively around my midsection in a feeble attempt to hold myself together. But the tears keep streaming down my cheeks, hot and stinging. I want to stop, I need to stop, but I can't. The sheriff moves toward me, his movements fluid and purposeful. And then, to my utter surprise, he guides me to a couch in the foyer and sinks down beside me. His muscular frame dwarfs my own before he pulls me into the shelter of his embrace. I stiffen, every nerve ending firing off warning signals as his arms encircle me, drawing me against the solid wall of his chest. But instead of the suffocating confinement I had expected, calm washes over me, a feeling of safety and security that I haven't experienced in longer than I can remember. "It's all right, let it out, Sarah. You're safe here," he murmurs, his deep baritone rumbling against my cheek as he tucks my head beneath his chin. And just like that, the dam breaks. As though his words, his presence, was permission enough. Sobs rack my body as every ounce of pain, every shred of heartbreak and disappointment that I've been harboring comes pouring out. I cling to him like a lifeline, my fingers twisting in the fabric of his shirt as I make a mess on him. He doesn't offer platitudes or empty reassurances. He simply rubs my back with his huge, capable hands and lets me cry. I don't stop crying to wonder that this is exactly what I need him to do. Finally, when the sobs have subsided into the occasional hiccuping gasp, He tilts my chin up, his calloused thumb swiping away the lingering traces of moisture from my cheeks. "Better?" he asks, his voice a low, soothing rumble. I nod shakily, suddenly acutely aware of the intimacy of our position, of the way his solid frame engulfs me in a cocoon of warmth and safety. Heat floods my cheeks, and I make a move to extract myself from his embrace, but he tightens his hold, his gaze holding mine with an intensity that steals my breath away. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to have such a pity party," I mumble, swiping at the lingering tear tracks on my cheeks with the back of my hand. Mitch's brow furrows and he shakes his head, his expression one of quiet reassurance. "This isn't a pity party, Sarah. Anything that causes this level of anguish with you is serious for me." His words, spoken with such conviction, such unwavering certainty, strike a chord deep within me. For once, I don't feel the need to shrink back, to brush off my pain as insignificant or unworthy of acknowledgement. Instead, I find myself nodding, emboldened by the genuine concern that shines in his molten gaze. "I'm just not used to this," I confess, my voice little more than a whisper. Mitch regards me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, with a gentleness that belies his imposing stature, he reaches out and takes my hand in his, engulfing it in the warmth of his calloused palm. "Not used to what? Showing this side of yourself to people who care?" "No one cares," I whisper, my voice thick with a lifetime's worth of loneliness and isolation. Not the foster parents, not the social workers. To them, I was just another whining foster kid, a burden to be shouldered until I aged out of the system. Oh God, why did I tell him that? I don't tell anyone about my past. I don't cry in front of people. I don't let myself get emotional. I don't show anyone anything. Why does it all come out with him? I have no defenses. My walls are obliterated as though they were never there. Shame floods through me. I stiffen, face hot and blood running cold. Wait for the sounds of pity. Mitch doesn't flinch though, and why does he always do the unexpected? He doesn't turn away or offer empty platitudes. He does the one thing no one else has done and understands. He tightens his grip on my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles in a soothing caress. That changes now. "You're not alone anymore, Sarah. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." His words wash over me like a balm, soothing the ache that has been festering in my soul. He's absolutely too good to be true, and the biggest question of all strangles past my lips. Why? He smiles, his expression one of quiet understanding and something else, something deeper that sends a frisson of awareness rippling through me. He rises to his feet and offers me his hand. "You'll see. For now we should head over to the station. I'll need to access your account information, see if we can get to the bottom of this mess." I frown, placing my hand in his without hesitation even when he didn't answer me. Not really, but his touch grounds me in a way I can't quite explain. He has my trust. Stupidly. Completely. Confusingly. We make our way toward the front entrance and I find myself drawing strength from his solid presence at my side. As we step outside, the crisp mountain air fills my lungs, carrying with it the sense of pine and earthy moss. But there's another scent mingled in, one that sets my pulse fluttering when he helps me into his police cruiser. The rich, heady aroma of sun-kissed skin and something distinctly masculine. It's Mitch's scent, I realize with a start, and it's everywhere, clinging to the upholstery and permeating the air around us like an intoxicating musk. I've never noticed scent before, and now that I do, I take a deep breath and savor the air in my lungs. "I like your car. It smells like you," I murmur, unable to resist the urge to lean in and breathe deeply of that alluring fragrance. Holy hell, did I really say that? A low chuckle rumbles from Mitch's chest, and he shoots me a sidelong glance, his lips curved in a hint of a smile. "I'm glad you approve," he says, his tone rich with amusement. The drive to the station is a blur, the picturesque scenery of Willowbrook passing by in a haze of vivid colors and quaint charm. But I barely register any of it, my focus entirely consumed by the man beside me, by the steady thrum of his presence that seems to ground me in a way I can't quite articulate. I've fallen into some sort of dream. An alternate reality, because I shouldn't be attracted to this man. It takes me months to let people in, and even then, I don't let them in entirely, but this man has sunk past every defense I have in a brief hour. We pull into the parking lot of a quaint two-story building that exudes a sense of rustic charm. The sheriff's station, I realize, taking in the whitewashed clapboard siding and the neatly tended flower boxes that line the front entrance. As we make our way inside, I can't help but marvel at the cozy interior, with its worn hardwood floors and the rich, earthy scent of cedar that permeates every nook and cranny. Everything about this town feels familiar, as though I belong. And I've never belonged anywhere. Mitch's deputy, a muscular man with a friendly smile, greets us in the lobby, his gaze flickering between us with a hint of curiosity. I recognize him as the man who followed the sheriff into the woods last night. I read his name badge, Zane Matthews. We're going to be doing some research. Sarah's bank account has unfortunately been emptied, Mitch says. I register the shock on Zane's face as Mitch takes my hand, leads me down a side hallway and into a cozy office tucked away from the main bullpen. As the door clicks shut behind us, Mitch draws a brown leather chair next to his behind his heavy oak desk that dominates the center of the room. Make yourself comfortable. I do as he asks, sinking onto the supple leather. He draws his own chair close. I breathe in air laced with sandalwood and a soft, calming haze settles over me with his closeness. With a few deft keystrokes, he pulls up my online banking portal when he asks for it. "All right, Sarah," he says, his gaze lifting to meet mine with an intensity that steals my breath away. "Let's get to the bottom of this." "Okay, Sheriff," I say. His face softens and I'm drawn into twin dark pools. "Please, call me Mitch." I nod, his name sinking into me with another feeling of illogical rightness. As the information loads on the screen, I brace myself for the worst, steeling my resolve for the confirmation of my darkest fears. And then everything is confirmed when I look at those that conniving asshole. All of my savings. Gone. All of those overtime hours I worked to get ahead. After all of the back-breaking, headache-inducing, unending hours of extra work I took on to make sure he didn't go without, Mark has left me penniless. I'm completely and utterly destitute.
That's why I was driving in the middle of nowhere. I came home and saw him in bed with, she says, her gaze distant, haunted. I had to get away. I didn't even think. I just packed a bag and got in my car and drove. The anguish etched into Sarah's delicate features cuts me to the core, each shaking breath she draws mirroring a physical ache deep within my soul. Rage simmers beneath my skin, a visceral, all-consuming fury that has my wolf snarling and snapping at the edges of my consciousness. How dare that man do what he did to my mate? How could any man do that to any woman? How dare this pathetic excuse for a man shatter something so precious, so utterly perfect? My muscles cord with the effort of restraint, every fiber of my being aching to unleash the full force of my wrath upon Sarah's ex. My wolf pushes at the edge of my control. Fur breaks out along my arm, thankfully hidden by the sleeve of my uniform. Easy, we can't act rashly, not when Sarah needs us. The thought of Sarah, so fragile and yet so achingly strong, is enough to temper the inferno of both our fury. I force myself to focus on her words, to truly listen as she speaks. "I paid for everything," she whispers, her voice trembling with a mixture of heartbreak and bitter resentment. "His tuition, his books, his rent. I worked overtime, took on extra shifts, just so he could focus on his studies. A harsh, sardonic laugh tears from her lips, the sound devoid of any true mirth, and her shoulders slump forward. I can't afford to pay Cindy for the room, and I certainly can't afford to fill up my gas tank. Each admission is a physical blow, driving the air from my lungs and leaving me reeling. This woman, this extraordinary creature who has endured more pain and heartache than anyone should ever have to bear, is more concerned with settling her debts than with her own circumstances. It's a testament to her strength, her unwavering sense of integrity and honor, and it only serves to deepen the well of regard I have for her. She is precious beyond measure. Sarah draws herself up, her shoulders squaring as she lifts her chin in a silent show of defiance. If there's one thing I know how to do, it's work, she declares, her voice ringing with a newfound determination that sets my soul ablaze with admiration. I'll do whatever it takes to earn my keep. I don't expect people to pay for me. If Sally needs a dishwasher or a waitress or someone to scrub floors, I'll do it. I'm not afraid of hard work. Pride swells within me, a fierce possessive surge that has my wolf preening and puffing out his chest. This woman, this extraordinary creature, is everything I could have ever hoped for in a maidstone. Resilient and unbreakable in the face of adversity. And in that moment, I know without a shadow of a doubt that I will never let her go, not for as long as I draw breath. She is mine, now and forever, and I will move heaven and earth to shield her from a world that has already taken heavy tolls. But first, she deserves to know the truth, the whole truth, about who and what I am, about the world that exists just beyond the veil of human perception. Tell me, Sarah, what is your profession? I'm a reporter, but I don't imagine there's much call for that sort of thing around here. She offers me a sad smile. A faint grin tugs at my lips, and I shake my head, unable to contain the surge of amusement that washes over me. If only she knew. I'm the alpha of our packlands and in charge of every job. I leave everyone to choose their own occupation, but I can also make up jobs that need doing. On the contrary, I think this area is in dire need of a skilled reporter, someone with a keen eye and an unwavering commitment to uncovering the truth. Our community has needed someone to bring it together, and words are a great way to do that, I say. She regards me dubiously, her eyes narrowing as she tries to discern if I'm simply placating her or if there's a deeper meaning lurking beneath my words. You're making that up, she accuses, her tone laced with challenge. I can't help but chuckle, my amusement only deepening at her quick wit and fiery spirit. Not at all. It'll save Sally from having to tell everyone news events when they wander into her diner. It can get a little long in the tooth for her, repeating herself all of the time. In fact, we're having a midwinter festival in town tonight, a celebration of the changing seasons and the promise of new beginnings. It's also an opportunity for the town to shift and go for a midnight run in the forest. But everyone will know to be careful with Sarah here. That is, until she wears my mating bite. The thought of that sends a surge of heat through me. I shift, hoping she doesn't notice my swelling crotch. Her brow tenses further, but I can see the flicker of interest kindling in her eyes, and I press my case. You could document the festivities, capture the essence of our town and its traditions, and in doing so, earn a tidy sum from our central fund to tide you over until we can sort out this mess with your accounts. I let the offer hang in the air between us, watching as a myriad of emotions play out across her expressive features. Curiosity, intrigue, and just a hint of wariness all vie for dominance, but it's the spark of determination that ultimately wins out. All right. I know you're only asking to be kind, but I'll do it. No payment necessary other than a place to sleep on credit, if that's okay. She holds up her palm when I start to object. This is only until I can get a proper job and pay with real money, and if I could use your computer to look for real jobs since I have no reception on my phone. This is a real job, I say. That may be so, but it still relies on kindness, and as far as my experience goes, kindness doesn't pay bills. Of course I'll do my best, Mitch, but I'll still need to get another job, just until I can get back on my feet. I want her off her feet, I want her in my bed, revered and spoiled for the rest of her life, as is her right as the fated mate of an alpha wolf. But I'm getting to know this exquisite woman with each passing moment, and she would hate to be coddled like that. No, Sarah needs to be heard. She needs to be given choices. She needs to make decisions on her own terms. She needs to know what true love and respect looks like. And I'm determined to show her exactly what that is. I'm not going to argue with her, especially since it gives me the perfect excuse to spend more time with her for our bond to strengthen. The Lunar Frost festivities begin at 5 in the afternoon. Before then, I'll show you around town so you can orient yourself. Her eyes flare. I couldn't possibly ask you to do that. I'm happy to take a wander on the way back to the wolf's bite. She won't get out of this. She doesn't know exactly what a wolf shifter will do for his mate. You haven't had breakfast yet. I'll take you to Sally's and she can see for herself that you've survived the night, and then you can come on patrol with me so you can orient yourself with the town, which you'll need to do for your job. Her gulp of breathless air is music to my ears when I take her hand and bring her to her feet. Sheriff. Mitch. The bond flares in my chest, bright with desire. They mix into an all-powerful urge that I give into. I pull her toward me so that she's crushed against my chest. Sarah's eyes blaze with barely restrained hunger, her full lips parted ever so slightly as she draws in a trembling breath. Her answering interest sparks to life in our bond as she begins to feel an echo of the red-hot desire thrumming through me. My wolf roars in triumph at having our mate in our arms, so tantalizingly close that our air mingles. Mate. My. Touch, take, taste, kiss. Need. The last vestiges of my restraint slip away as a wave of pure, unbridled want and longing crashes over me. With a low, rumbling growl, I cup her face in my palms, reveling in the silken warmth of her skin beneath my touch. Her pupils dilate, swallowing the vibrant emerald of her irises until only a thin ring of jade remains. Mate, I rasp before I claim her lips with mine. The kiss is searing, scorching in its intensity. Sarah's body is tense against mine, but I swipe my tongue along the seam of her lips, and she melts against me. Even watered-down wolf-shifter blood is too powerful to deny a fated mate bond. She is no less immune to it than I am. A guttural groan tears itself from my throat as her fingers tangle in the fabric of my shirt. My wolf howls in triumph, a feral, possessive sound that echoes through the very core of my being. She draws back, lips shining, eyes glazed. Did you hear that? The only thing I hear is my heart pounding and my wolf trying to tear his way from my skin. Sounds like a wolf, she whispers. If I had any doubt she was mine, it's incinerated in flames in an instant. Mine. She is mine, now and forever, the missing piece of my soul that I've been searching for my entire life. Sarah is my mate, my destiny, the other half of my being, blessed by the goddess herself. Sarah was never lost. She never stumbled into Willowbrook. She was brought here to seal both our destinies. I now understand what it truly means to be complete. With a low, guttural growl, I tear my lips from hers, peppering searing kisses along the slender column of her throat as my hands roam the lush curves of her body. She arches into my touch, her head falling back to grant me better access, a breathless whimper escaping her parted lips. Mitch, she gasps, my name a reverent sigh that sends a shudder of pure, unadulterated desire rippling through me. I growl in response, nipping at the tender flesh where her pulse flutters erratically beneath the surface. Mine, the possessive rumble seems to say, all mine. Mitch, she moans. Sarah is my mate, my love, my everything. And as I lose myself in the searing heat of her embrace, I silently vow to spend the rest of my days worshiping her, cherishing her, giving her everything she never knew she needed. She is the air I breathe, the beat of my heart, the very essence of my existence, and I will gladly burn the world to the ground to protect her. Without her I am nothing, but with her by my side I am everything. A man made whole, a soul reborn in the fires of a love that transcends space and time itself. Mitch! She wrenches away from me, capturing my face in her hands. She's panting, breathing as frantically as I am, but the dazed look clears from her eyes, helping to ease some of the fog from my head. She licks her glossed lips, takes a deep breath and says, What's a mate?
The moment Mitch's lips crash against mine, my world tilts on its axis. His arms engulf me, drawing me flush against the hard planes of his body, and I melt into his embrace, surrendering to the raw need that blazes through me. Holy cow, is the only coherent thought that manages to pierce through the haze of desire. I've never been kissed like this before, with such unbridled passion, such reverence and possession all rolled into one. It's heady, intoxicating, and I find myself responding in kind, my lips parting beneath the insistent glide of his tongue as a needy whimper escapes the back of my throat. It feels so right, so perfect, as if every atom in my being has been yearning for this moment without my conscious knowledge. His scent, that rich, earthy musk, surrounds me, enveloping me in a cocoon of pure, unadulterated desire. And then, just as I'm spiraling deeper into the abyss of sensation, he utters a single word against the swell of my lips, a word that shatters the spell and sends reality crashing back down upon me like a tidal wave. Mate, the whispered endearment is enough to douse the heat licking at my senses. My eyes fly open, and I find myself staring into the molten depths of his gaze, so filled with longing and promise that it steals the breath from my lungs. Nate? Did he really just... Panic flares within me, hot and insistent, as the implications of that single word sink in. I've only just met this man, this ruggedly handsome sheriff who has awoken an untamed part of me. How can he possibly be speaking of mates, when I can scarcely catch my breath in his presence? And yet, even as my mind races, a tiny voice whispers from the depths of my soul, a voice that speaks of destiny and fated connections that transcend the boundaries of logic and reason. I don't know what that voice is, or where it's come from. Before I can dwell on it further, I'm extracting myself from Mitch's embrace, putting much-needed distance between us as I struggle to regain my bearings. This is a mistake. I'm sorry, but kissing you? It was a bad idea, I blurt out, the words tumbling from my lips before I have the chance to stop them. To his credit, Mitch doesn't argue or try to convince me otherwise. He simply nods, his expression inscrutable as he regards me with those searing eyes that see right through me. No one has looked at me like that before. Not even on the odd time I'd let something personal slip, and even then, after a startled silence, it would be ignored. Conversation would flow to something else less pitiful. But not Mitch. I can't shake the feeling he can see into my soul and come away unflinching, unflayed, bared, but he makes no remark, simply sees and does the very opposite of what I expect. Noted, he murmurs, his voice low and gravelly, in a way that sends a shiver of awareness rippling down my spine. I would like to say I enjoyed it very much and don't think it was a mistake. That being said, I'd still like to get you breakfast before I show you around town. And Sally will still also want to know you made it through the night in one piece. I blink, caught off guard by the sudden change in subject, but I don't protest as he ushers me to the door, his large hand resting at the small of my back in a gesture that is equal parts comforting and possessive. If any other man touched me like that, I would hate it and move away. But with Mitch, I don't hate it. As we make our way to his police cruiser, I notice the impressive bulge tenting the front of his uniform pants. That can't be comfortable. I quickly avert my gaze before I offer to do something about it because, if I'm honest with myself, my palms are itching with the need to touch. Bad, Sarah. Bad. The drive to Sally's diner is a blur, the quaint scenery of Willowbrook passing by in a kaleidoscope of colors and textures. I'm hyper-aware of Mitch's presence beside me, of the way his scent permeates the very air around us, how I'm even noticing his scent. I have to resist the urge to squirm in my seat, to alleviate the ache that has taken root deep between my thighs. As we pull into the diner's parking lot, I can't help but observe the curious glances from passers-by, their gazes lingering on the sight of me in the passenger seat of the sheriff's cruiser. A flush of self-consciousness washes over me. Everyone seems to know who I am. I guess anyone new in a small country town would stand out, especially one being driven around in a police cruiser. Mitch doesn't seem to notice or care about the scrutiny. With a gentleness that belies his imposing stature, he helps me from the vehicle, his palm warm and reassuring against the small of my back. As we approach the diner's entrance, the haunting sound of wolves howling drifts through the crisp mountain air. I stop when I stand to listen. "Wolves?" I murmur, glancing toward the tree line with a mixture of trepidation and curiosity. Mitch nods, his expression unreadable. "There's a sizable population in these forests, but you needn't worry. Just steer clear of the woods and you'll be perfectly safe." I file away the warning for future reference as he ushers me through the diner's entrance and into the warm, welcoming embrace of Sally's establishment. The moment we step inside, Sally's warm smile envelops us, her expression one of genuine delight as she takes in the sight of us together. "Well, well," she croons, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "I see you have wasted no time keeping her in your sights, Sheriff." There's an undercurrent of teasing in her tone, a subtle nudge that implies a deeper meaning lurking beneath the surface, and as Mitch chuckles in response, shooting her a wry grin, I think I'm missing out on some private joke, some unspoken understanding that everyone seems privy to but me. Except for one thing, the way Mitch looked at me, the naked longing that had burned in those molten depths as he uttered that single, earth-shattering word. "May." The memory sends a shiver of awareness down my spine, and I quickly push it aside, determined not to dwell on the implications of something that could never be more than a fleeting fancy. As Sally whisks us to a cozy booth near the back of the diner, I find myself relaxing into the familiar surroundings as though I'm as comfortable here as one of the locals. Mitch slides into the seat across from me, his large body taking up most of the bench. "Did you always want to be a reporter?" he asks, his voice low and resonant in a way that sends a shiver of awareness racing down my spine. I blink, caught off guard, but his gaze blooms with open curiosity. He really wants to know. "Ever since I was a little girl." And then words tumble from my lips and I can't keep them in the same way I couldn't stop them slipping through before. I want to tell him. Want him to know about myself. I've always loved to write, to capture the world around me and distill it into words on a page. Being a reporter just seemed like the natural progression, a way to marry my passion with a steady paycheck. Mitch listens intently, his expression one of rapt attention as I regale him with the details of my career aspirations, my dreams of one day penning a best-selling novel. "But that's still a ways off," I admit with a rueful chuckle. "It's not easy to make a living as a writer, at least not at first. That's why I chose journalism. It allowed me to hone my craft while still earning a decent wage." As the words leave my lips, I'm struck by a sudden pang of wistfulness, a longing for the life I had once envisioned for myself. Mark and I had a plan. I would work while he studied, and once he had his degree and started to work, I would cut down to part-time work and begin my novel. That dream has gone up in flames. "I would love to read a book you wrote," Mitch says. My head snaps up. I'd often chatted to Mark about my ideas, but he never really responded about anything concrete. He'd smile, but his eyes would always have a faraway look in them, and I knew he wasn't really interested, so I never even told him what my story would be about. I put that down to him not really understanding the urge to write. Not many people do. The thought of it sounds good, but you have to have gumption to pen word after word, day after day. Mark certainly never looked at me with the same eagerness spread across Mitch's face. "You would?" His brows rise, as though he finds my surprise a surprise to him. "Of course. I'd probably pester to read it as soon as you got a new chapter down. I mean, I know you'd want to polish it before you handed anything over, but I'd like to think we could talk things through if you got stuck on any plot points." I search his face for any trace of a lie, but find nothing but openness. He's serious. He's really serious. I'm both flattered and confused. "You mean that?" "Of course I do. I think it's wonderful anyone could write a book. It's amazing." His expression slides into one of quiet concern. "But You don't think so? I shrug. I never really thought about it that way. It's just something I've always wanted to do, I guess. What made you decide to pursue writing in the first place? He prompts, his tone gentle yet laced with a genuine curiosity that catches me off guard. I hesitate, my gaze dropping to the worn laminate as I wrestle with the weight of the memories that threaten to overwhelm me. I don't talk about my childhood, ever, even to Mark. But when I lift my chin and meet Mitch's gaze, I'm not scared to answer his question. I don't understand why when the words usually burn like bile up my throat. Now, when that strange feeling of wanting to tell him everything switches on and I want to share. It's important, he knows. I didn't have the typical upbringing, no parents, no family support, just a string of foster homes and social workers who saw me as nothing more than a burden to be shuffled from one place to the next. The admission hangs heavy in the space between us, laden with a lifetime of loneliness and isolation that still manages to sting, even after all these years. But Mitch doesn't flinch, doesn't offer empty platitudes or hollow reassurances. Instead, he simply nods, his expression one of quiet understanding and acceptance. I swallow hard and continue. I started writing when I was little. It became my escape. And when I got older, when I realized that I could turn that passion into a career, well, it just seemed like the natural path to take. As the words trail off, I find myself searching Mitch's gaze, seeking a hint of judgment or pity. What I find there is neither of those things. There's an understanding that reaches into the very depths of my soul. I realize that for the first time in longer than I can remember, I've allowed someone to see the real me, the broken, battered parts I've kept carefully hidden from the world. Instead of turning away in disgust or dismissing me, Mitch has met me head-on, his presence a steady anchor in the midst of the storm that has been raging within me for far too long. I don't want to burden you, I say. A small huff of air leaves his full lips. You're no burden, Sarah. I stare at him and do nothing but believe him. Why do I want to tell you these things? I'm not just hearing your words, Sarah. I'm feeling them, down to the very core of my being, he murmurs, his voice a low, resonant rumble. Mitch's words ease the ache that's always there deep down inside. And from that ache, the voice of reason that speaks of self-preservation and the bitter lessons learned from past heartaches whispers in my head. And that voice is right. I can't let myself get swept away, not again. Not when the wounds from Mark's betrayal are still so fresh. With a monumental effort, I remove my hand that found its way somehow under his. Mitch doesn't push, doesn't try to force his way past the barriers I've thrown up. He simply nods, a small, understanding smile tugging at the corners of his lips. It's time I showed you around town, get you oriented before the festivities start up, he says, his tone easy and relaxed, as if he can sense my need for space. I nod, grateful for the opportunity to regain my bearings and put some much-needed distance between us. As much as I'm drawn to this man, this steadfast, unwavering force of nature, I can't afford to let my guard down completely. Because if I do, I might be swallowed whole, and I don't know if that's the right thing for either of us.
As we cruise down Moonshadow Avenue, the heart of our little slice of paradise, I drink in the sights and sounds with a newfound sense of discovery. What is this place? Sarah murmurs, her eyes wide with awe and bewilderment as she takes in the eclectic array of buildings. Buildings I take for granted, having looked at them for years. A slow smile tugs at the corners of my lips, and I can't resist the urge to reach across the console and give her hand a gentle squeeze. Welcome to the heart of Willowbrook. As we roll to a stop at the intersection, I gesture toward the first shop, a charming little apothecary nestled between a bakery and a jeweler's storefront. That's the Urban Potion Emporium. They specialize in all sorts of natural remedies and specialty items. Sarah's brow crumples, and I see the wheels turning as she processes the unusual name. But before she can voice her curiosity, I'm guiding the cruiser onwards, my gaze roaming over the next shop. Fern-Fang Outfitters, I continue, nodding at the rustic storefront with its display of rugged outdoor gear and accessories. They cater to a very niche clientele. This time Sarah doesn't bother trying to hide her confusion, her head swiveling to fix me with an incredulous look. Niche clientele? She echoes, her tone laced with challenge. Mitch, what exactly is going on here? A low chuckle rumbles in my chest, and I shake my head, unable to resist the urge to tease her just a little. All in good time, Sarah. There are secrets here only those who live here can know. She lets out a soft huff of laughter and turns her attention back to the scenery unfolding before us, completely unaware I wasn't joking. Fine, keep your mysteries. But you'd better be prepared to spill everything eventually, Sheriff, she concedes. The endearment rolls off her tongue with a familiarity that sends a surge of possessive satisfaction coursing through my veins. I feel her ease slide through the bond. The way the discomfort of before has vanished in place of something more settled. The bond is strengthening, and it makes my heart light. With a grin, I guide the cruiser onwards, pointing out each unique shop and business as we drive past. The moonlit bookstore, with its dusty tomes and arcane volumes. The Paws and Claws Pet Emporium, catering to the furry companions that roam our streets with unbridled freedom. Sarah drinks it all in, her expression a kaleidoscope of emotions, wonder, curiosity, and just a hint of trepidation, all vying for dominance. Finally, we reach the sprawling, fortress-like structure that serves as the central hub for our community. The pack house, as it's known, looms before us, its imposing walls and sturdy battlements, a testament to the strength and resilience of our kind. This is where the true heart of Willowbrook resides. It's a place of coming together as a township, to celebrate our traditions and honor our roots, I say. And where I hold pack meetings and make decrees that affect the thousands of people who live in my packlands. Sarah's gaze is transfixed, her lips parted in a soft O of wonder as she takes in the majesty of the pack house. She shoots me a sidelong glance, her eyes narrowed ever so slightly. The names of these shops, she begins, her tone laced with a hint of curiosity. The Herb and Potion Emporium, Fur and Fang Outfitters, Paws and Claws Pet Emporium. She ticks off each establishment, her gaze growing more thoughtful with each passing syllable. And then there's that massive building you called the pack house. Is there some sort of wolf theme going on here? Some kind of inside joke that I'm missing out on? For a brief moment, I consider deflecting, offering up some half-truth or vague explanation to keep the mystery alive. But something in Sarah's expression, that insatiable curiosity and thirst for understanding, has me reconsidering. Perhaps it's time to start peeling back the layers. The wolf holds a special significance here in Willowbrook, I say. Her brow knits. What do you mean? Are you trying to tell me that this town is full of wolf enthusiasts or something? A slow grin tugs at the corners of my lips, and I shake my head in quiet amusement. Let's just say that the wolf is more than just a symbol or a mascot around these parts. It's a part of our very essence, woven into the fabric of who we are. Sarah regards me for a long moment, her boundless eyes searching mine for any hint of deception or jest, but she finds none, only the quiet certainty that radiates from my every pore as alpha. She lets out a soft huff of laughter and shakes her head in bemusement. You're certainly full of surprises, Sheriff, she murmurs. She has no idea. Not yet, anyway. I can't resist the urge to show Sarah a piece of myself, a glimpse into my life. With a turn of the steering wheel, I guide the cruiser down a winding side road, the trees giving way to reveal a breathtaking view of a secluded valley, nestled amidst the towering peaks like a hidden paradise. Situated between the trees stands the home I've built but never lived in. Its sturdy timber walls and soaring pitched roof exude rustic charm, but it's the floor-to-ceiling windows that truly steal the show, their vast expanses of glass reflecting the splendor of the surrounding landscape. Sarah's sharp intake of breath is music to my ears, and I shoot her a sidelong glance, drinking in the awe that has transformed her delicate features. It's beautiful, she breathes, her beautiful eyes wide as she takes in the majesty of the cabin and its pristine surroundings. Pride swells within me, a fierce, possessive surge that has my wolf preening and puffing out his chest. I lean over the steering wheel, imagining seeing it for the first time, the way she does. I built it myself, every beam, every pane of glass. It's all a part of me, a reflection of the home I've always wanted to create. I built it for my mate, for her, even before I'd seen her face. Call it divine inspiration or just plain hope. I'd laid every plank of timber hoping to one day build this home. Our home. Sarah's gaze snaps to mine, her expression one of open astonishment and admiration. You built this? Mitch, that's incredible. You're incredibly talented. A low rumble of satisfaction vibrates in my chest at her praise. It was a labor of love, a way for me to pour every ounce of my heart and soul into creating a haven, a sanctuary for your. She lets the question hang in the air. The words catch in my throat, the truth hovering on the precipice of revelation. For you, my mate, my other half, a place where we can build a life together, a home to call our own, where we can live out our lives together. But even as the admission burns on the tip of my tongue, I force it back, swallowing hard against the tide of emotions that threaten to overwhelm me. I built it for my wife. Wow, she's going to be one happy woman, Sarah says, turning her shining eyes to me. My hand itches to reach for her, and I only just stop myself when it lifts off the steering wheel. Longing blooms through the bond, her longing for acceptance, for completion, to belong, and something else deeper and more complex. What's more, there's also a touch of jealousy, and if I'm reading that right, it's because she's interested. Not only because I'm her mate and she feels a draw toward me, but because she likes the man I am. I send a burst of affection toward her, of my complete and total loyalty at the first stirrings of love I have for her. For humans, it would be far too soon to feel anything close to the strength of those emotions, but the bond works differently. It provides a connection between our souls so that we recognize each other on a much deeper level. There will be a lifetime of getting to know each other, but that deeper connection is already there. For me, she is already my one and only. She's everything I ever want, need, or desire. She is perfect for me in every way. She is a gift given to me by the wolf-shifter goddess, blessed by the wings of fate. For me, there is no hesitation, and once she's aware of the bond, she will understand too. I send my desire for her through the bond, hoping that she'll start to feel an inch of what I do. I grow still. Every cell in my body is locked on her as the scent of her desire swirls around us. She draws in a quick breath, her pupils dilating, and I want to whoop with happiness and joy. She feels me. The bond is no longer one way. My wolf stirs beneath my skin. Mate, claim, mine, bite. I grit my teeth, fighting against the rising tide of instinct and primal need that threatens to sweep me away. I can't lose control, not now, not when so much hangs in the balance. Stop, she needs more time. She needs to feel more. She needs to know and fully understand before we claim her. But my wolf isn't listening. He's scenting her interest. He doesn't care about waiting or upsetting her or potentially scaring her away forever. He wants her, and he wants her now. I grip the steering wheel tight to stop from reaching across the console. I swing the wheel and hightail it away from our future home, guiding the cruiser back into the main road, putting as much distance between us and the temptation of my sanctuary as possible. Sarah grips the door as the cruiser rocks, her eyes wide. All I want to do is stop and explain, but I can't because my teeth are already elongating. I press my tongue against the tip of my fangs, hoping the coppery taste of my blood is enough to shock my wolf into regaining his mind, but it isn't. Her brows wrinkle, confusion and a hint of hurt flickering across her delicate features. She doesn't understand the leash on my wolf grows more tenuous, threatening to snap at any moment. I'll take you back to the wolf's bite, I manage, my voice a low, gravelly rumble that betrays the turmoil raging within me. You should rest before the festivities begin. We pull up in front of my sister's hotel, and I waste no time in throwing the cruiser into park and killing the engine. Without a word, I exit the vehicle, rounding the hood in a few long strides to open Sarah's door for her. She regards me warily, her eyes guarded. I don't meet her gaze. Not when my control is hanging by a mere thread. I'll come by to collect you at 5. Be ready, I growl, the words clipped and abrupt in a desperate bid to mask the sound of my wolf pushing through. I help her from the cruiser and bolt to my side to slide behind the wheel once again, every muscle in my body straining with the effort of restraint. It's the only way I can keep Sarah safe. I slam the vehicle into gear, wincing as the tires spin on the gravel, before I tear down the road and away from our mate. My wolf howls, but I'm so angry with him I can't talk to him to calm him down. If it weren't for him, we'd still have her in the cruiser with us. Instead, I cling to my control with my fingernails until I reach the outskirts of the town. I throw open the door and tear off my clothes and let the shift rip through me. My wolf throws back his head and howls, the sound echoing through the valley. Best I let him take control and run before he steps in and makes a mess of not only our lives but that of our mate.
The moment Mitch speeds away in his cruiser, bewilderment washes over me. 1 minute he was showing me the breathtaking cabin he'd built with his own 2 hands, his voice laced with quiet pride and reverence, and the next, he could barely get me back to the wolf's bite fast enough. Did I make a mistake? Say something to upset him or trigger his sudden change? I replay our interactions over and over in my mind, searching for any hint of misstep or offense, but come up empty-handed. I frown as I try to make sense of his erratic behavior. There had been an undercurrent of tension, a simmering intensity that had pulsed just beneath the surface, and for a fleeting moment I could have sworn I saw a flicker of something feral burning in the depths of his eyes, as though another awareness lives under his skin. But just as quickly as the thought takes root, I push it aside, dismissing it as nothing more than a figment of my overactive imagination. Despite the lingering confusion and hurt that Mitch's abrupt departure has left in its wake, I can't deny the deeper connection I feel toward him, a fundamental sense of rightness and belonging that defies all logic and reason. There is an undeniable quality about Mitch, an essence that resonates within my soul. He gets me, understands me on a level that transcends words or surface-level interactions. When I'm with him, when I allow myself to bask in the warmth of his presence, a profound peace and acceptance washes over me. It sounds corny when I think about him that way. And yet I have no other way to describe those feelings. Which is why, despite the nagging voice of self-preservation that whispers for me to keep my distance, there's an undeniable pull that defies the boundaries of rational thought. My head snaps up as a haunting wolf's howl echoes through the crisp mountain air. The sound tugs at something deep within me and makes goosebumps rise over my skin. I turn toward the tree line, my gaze searching for the source, but the forest remains still and silent, and I remember the connection Willowbrook has with wolves. Maybe this is why they've named shops after wolves. That howl is going to stay with me for a very long time. I wait to hear another howl, but the wolf stays silent. With a shake of my head, I turn and make my way back into the wolf's bite. As I step into the cozy lobby, I'm greeted by the sight of Cindy bustling about behind the front desk. "There you are," she exclaims, her green eyes twinkling with mischief. I haven't noticed the shade of them before, but now I look, they're an unusual shade. Like sea glass. I was beginning to wonder if the sheriff had decided to keep you all to himself. Heat blooms in my cheeks at her teasing tone, and I can't help but avert my gaze, suddenly self-conscious. He had to go take care of something, I say. The memory of tires throwing up gravel in his haste to leave still fresh in my mind. Cindy's brow gathers ever so slightly, and I can practically see the wheels turning. But before she can probe further, I'm pressing on, determined to steer the conversation in a different direction. "Although my bank account has been cleaned out, I can still pay you. Mitch offered me a job, I confess. Although it's only a pity job, it means I can earn money. I'm going to write about the festivities tonight for the town newspaper." To my surprise, Cindy doesn't seem the least bit taken aback by the revelation. Instead, she simply chuckles and shakes her head, her expression one of quiet amusement. "Of course he did. My brother would move heaven and earth for you if he could," she murmurs. There's something weighted in her tone that hovers just beyond the periphery of my understanding. A frown pulls at the edges of my lips as I regard her. Is there something I should know about him? I ask, unable to shake the nagging sense of unease that has taken root in the pit of my stomach. I mean, is he, I trail off, suddenly uncertain of how to voice the question that leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. Is Mitch the type of man who preys on vulnerable women, offering false promises and empty reassurances? He knows many things about me. That I've run from a disastrous relationship, burning with shock and betrayal. I'm broke. My job will likely no longer be there because I haven't turned up for days. I have no family to call on for help, or even friends come to that. In short, my life is pretty sad. I'm vulnerable, and if I'm not careful, open to more abuse. Many people wouldn't think twice about kicking a person already down. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that it's only the lingering doubt that Mark has messed with my mind, and I hope that on the slim chance I'm right about Mitch, that Cindy would tell me even though she is his sister. I watch her body language, looking for traces of a lie, but she's already shaking her head with conviction. My brother is many things, Sarah, but a philanderer is not one of them. Okay. My shoulders slump in relief as the weight of my concerns dissipates. Cindy's gaze grows distant as she focuses inward. There's something sad and wistful about the look on her face. In fact, the men around here tend to be the forever kind, one-woman men, bound to their mates for eternity. The word hangs heavy in the air between us, and that strange, second knowing switches into place again. Mates? Mitch uttered that same word, his voice laced with a depth of reverence and possession. Only when he'd said it, shivers of awareness had raced down my spine. What exactly do you mean by mates? She regards me for a long moment, her expression one of quiet contemplation, and then, with a soft sigh, she shakes her head and offers a small smile. Imagine finding that one person who completes you in every way, as if they were tailor-made for you by the universe itself. A mate is a person destined to be your soulmate, bound to you through an inexplicable and unbreakable connection. Her words paint a vivid picture of love and devotion so profound, so all-consuming, that it seems to transcend the boundaries of mortal understanding. Despite my best efforts to remain objective, to approach the concept with a healthy dose of skepticism, a flicker of longing takes root deep within my soul. As the weight of Cindy's words settles over me, a single face dances at the edges of my consciousness. Ruggedly handsome, with liquid brown eyes and a presence that steals the breath from my lungs. Mitch. I shake my head, trying to dislodge the errant thought before it can take root and blossom into something more. Because as much as a part of me yearns to entertain the notion of fated mates and cosmic connections, the rational side of me rebels. I think that sounds like it might be too good to be true, I say. And I say sometimes fate works in mysterious ways, Cindy says. Still, as I make my way back to my room to prepare for this evening, I can't shake the lingering tendrils of Cindy's words, or the way they resonate deep within me even when I know better. The feeling stays with me as I put the finishing touches on my outfit for tonight. A pair of well-worn jeans that hug my curves in all the right places, and a cozy sweater makes the color of my eyes pop. I realize these are my comfort clothes, articles I wore when I hadn't met Mark. When I'd finished my journalism course and worked those first few low-paying, step-up-the-ladder jobs I liked much better than the big-paying, corporate job I'd ended up with. Then I'd worn uncomfortable corporate suits. Strange, I'd passed them up for tonight. In the back of my mind, they might be a better choice considering I'm getting paid, but the suits didn't seem right. Not now, and I realize, not ever. I never really liked myself in those clothes. Not that Mark ever commented on what I wore or looked like. He never really saw me. I was little more than a means to an end, a warm body to share his bed and a steady paycheck to keep the bills paid and the refrigerator stocked. He was completely indifferent to me. He didn't just fail to see me, he failed to appreciate the very essence of who I am. And now, when I think of him, I only see him in a gray, washed-out sort of way. He's an old photo of an era long gone, and another image overlays the old in bright, vibrant colors. It's Mitch. His image burns bright and alive, and it's vivid and enticing, exciting and overwhelming. And as I concentrate on the image of Mitch, something untamed awakens within me, something that has lain dormant. A rueful smile tugs at the corners of my lips as I acknowledge the truth that has been staring me in the face all along. I would never have been happy with Mark. I would have been settling. I would have suffocated. I would not have rediscovered a part of myself that had been lost if I was still grieving over our relationship. A breeze whisks through the trees outside the window and also flows through my mind, blowing away the cobwebs that have clung to the inside of my skull. I should be filled with grief over Mark, but I'm not. I hate what he did, there's no question. But the man himself? I haven't missed him. Instead, with him out of my life, I'm free. I'm unexpectedly happy. A surge of gratitude washes over me towards Tanya, the woman who, through her selfish actions, saved me from a life of something far less than I deserved. Where there always should have been a spark in my relationship with Mark, there was absence. I went through the motions because I thought I didn't know better. After only one day of knowing Mitch, a fire of knowing burns bright. Still, the small voice of caution whispers in the back of my mind, a gentle nudge toward rationality and self-preservation. It's too early to feel like that for a man I've only just met. But even as I acknowledge the wisdom in those words and vow to tread carefully and guard my heart, I can't shake the sense of rightness emanating from the core of my being. With a renewed sense of self, I straighten my shoulders and hold my head high as I walk down the corridor from my hotel room. My steps are confident, no longer weighed down by the baggage of Mark's indifference. As I step out into the parking lot, the crisp mountain air fills my lungs, invigorating me with each breath. I glance toward the tree line, half expecting to hear the haunting call of the wolf that had stirred something primeval within me earlier. However, the forest remains silent. I'm a little early, but the anticipation of seeing Mitch again has me practically vibrating with restless energy. As I round the corner of the wolf's bite, my gaze immediately lands on Mitch's cruiser, and my heart clenches. There he is, already waiting for me, his broad shoulders and muscular frame cutting an imposing figure against the backdrop of the setting sun. A shiver of awareness races down my spine, racing goosebumps in its wake. It's a purely visceral reaction, one I can't control or rationalize away. Every part of me is hyper-attuned to his presence, as if he's a lodestone, and I'm the helpless piece of metal drawn toward him. My gaze locks with Mitch's, as that invisible tether binds us together, and then, like a bolt of lightning searing through my consciousness, a single word whispers through my mind, loud, insistent, and shocking in its intensity. Mate, it's not just a word but a truth. I stumble, my steps faltering, as a tendril of doubt slithers through the cracks of my consciousness, just as fast. Surely that word was nothing but a trick. A fleeting fancy caused by exhaustion and the turmoil in my mind. And the unshakable understanding that the fairy tale Cindy told me may not be fictional at all.
I am utterly spellbound the moment Sarah steps into view, her fiery tresses glowing like molten copper in the fading twilight. The sight of her steals the breath from my lungs, and when her green eyes find me standing by the side of my cruiser waiting for her, her full lips tip into a radiant smile, and the world stops. Stunning, she's absolutely stunning. My wolf howls, a feral sound that reverberates through every cell in my body. Mate, mine, bite, claim. My muscles coil tight, restraining him when all he wants to do is break free of my skin and rub himself all over her because he's right. The goddess has blessed us. She is ours, ours to claim, to cherish, to worship forever. Sarah's eyes flare, and a look of panic forces her happiness away. Her steps falter as though she can feel the undercurrent of possession that crackles around us. Panic lances through me, sharp and insistent, and before I can think, I'm propelling myself forward, every muscle poised to catch her. But she regains her footing, her brow furrowing as her smile slips, replaced by a look of uncertainty that has every raw urge within me screaming to soothe and reassure. Soon I will be able to, when she knows, when she accepts me for who I am to her and she won't push me away. With a monumental effort, I rein in my instincts, forcing myself to maintain a semblance of calm as I usher her into the confines of the cruiser. "Are you all right?" I murmur, as she clips her seatbelt. She nods, offering a tight smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm fine," she insists, but her eyebrows draw together and she glances away. I can't help but feel the way I left her before has something to do with her obvious discomfort. "I owe you an apology," I begin, the words tumbling from my lips in a rush, "for how I left things earlier, for running off without an explanation. It wasn't right of me." Sarah regards me for a long moment, her expression unreadable, but then, slowly, the tension bleeds from her shoulders, and she offers me a small, reassuring smile. "It's all right. You're the sheriff. I'm not your only job. You have other duties to attend to." She's right, I did have other obligations, but wrestling my wolf under control shouldn't be something that drives me away from her. I send censure to my wolf, only slightly mollified when his ears droop. Her sweet scent holds a sour edge. I know she's feeling the bond between us, as much as I am, but she's unsure what it is or even if she can trust her feelings. It hums beneath my skin, a thrum of awareness that resonates in perfect harmony with the basic instincts of my wolf. "I'm glad my duties have brought me back to you," I say, happy when the sourness dissipates. She smiles. "I'm glad I can bring some enjoyment to your busy day." "You bring more than enjoyment to my day, Sarah." I'm pleased when a fetching pink blush blossoms over her cheeks. I'll have to tell her everything, but for now, as I guide the cruiser through the bustling streets of Willowbrook, I allow myself to simply be with her, because every moment spent in her company will deepen the bond. As we pull into the heart of the market square, the festive atmosphere envelops us in a warm embrace. Twinkling lights drape from the branches of towering oaks, casting a soft, ethereal glow over the scene. The air is rich with the scents of roasting meats and spiced cider, mingling with the earthy aromas of handcrafted wares and freshly cut pine. Laughter and music fill the air, a symphony of joy and revelry that resonates deep within me. This is my home, my pack, the beating heart of everything I've sworn to protect and cherish. I guide Sarah through the throngs of merrymakers, basking in the warmth of their greetings and well-wishes, and a surge of pride swells within me. I hope it will come to mean as much to Sarah as it does everyone who lives in Willowbrook. So much rests on me doing this properly. Sarah drinks in the sights and sounds. Her gaze darts from one vibrant display to the next with an insatiable curiosity that tugs at the corners of my lips. But even as she revels in the festivities, even as she allows herself to be swept up in the infectious energy that pulses through the very air around us, I sense her sharp mind at work, cataloging information for her article. Hopefully more. I can't help but hope this might form inspiration for her book, a place she will want to build her life with me. "What is all of this for? This lunar frost festival, I mean?" she asks. I regard her for a long moment, torn between the desire to lay everything bare and the need to tread carefully. Tonight is a celebration. The lunar aspect represents the connection to the moon, often associated with transformation and magic in wolf mythology, while frost celebrates the icy beauty of the winter solstice, I say. It's a half-truth, a careful omission that skirts the true significance of this night. Tonight is the longest night of the year, when the boundaries between our world and the natural forces of nature are thin and permeable. It's also a time when shifters are at our most vulnerable. The whole town of Willowbrook will answer the call of their wolves to run wild and unfettered through the forests that surround our lands together. It unites us in both our human and wolf forms. A pang hits my heart. That, as a human, she probably won't shift into her own wolf. But she will feel the strength of the goddess through our bond at least. There are some of us in our pack that don't have wolves, but they are no less important than anyone else. Unlike other packs, I make sure to keep it that way. I reach out with my senses, tracking each ward that lines our packlands, relaxing a little when I don't detect any disturbances, especially along the Ironjaw border. The last thing I want is to have to deal with the Ironjaw Alpha, Jonah Cooper, tonight, not when everything inside me wants to protect our mate. That thought alone is enough to have my wolf bristling beneath my skin. A low, rumbling growl echoes through my consciousness when my wolf agrees. Mate. Mine. Bite. Claim. I clench my teeth and force my wolf back down, my own growl rumbling in my chest. "Are you all right?" she asks. "Is something happening like before?" I open my mouth to respond, to offer some semblance of reassurance or explanation, but before I can form the words, a familiar voice cuts through the din, warm and rich with affection. "Well, if it isn't my two favorite people," Sally's cheerful tone breaks through my thoughts. She approaches us with her usual warmth and exuberance, her eyes twinkling with mischief as she pulls Sarah into a warm embrace. "You're just in time for the real festivities to begin. Has the sheriff filled you in about them?" she says, raising her brows over the fiery crown of Sarah's head. "Yes, the sheriff has told me all about it. Holding a festival on the longest night of winter is a great idea," she says. Sally gives me a sharp look, and I stiffen. "Did he also tell you the festival goes back to the root of Willowbrook?" "I was getting to that," I say. "Oh, I need to know everything. That would be a fantastic addition to the article," Sarah says. Before I can sweep her away from Sally and her pointed stares, Cindy pushes through the crowds, her eyes sparkling with mischief. I tense when I see the light green of her wolf shine, though, but she quickly shoves it down. "Sarah, you must try one of our famous howling wolf dogs," she says, thrusting the piping hot delicacy into Sarah's hands with a flourish. "It's a true taste of Willowbrook, made with pepperjack cheese to give it a fiery kick, symbolizing the fierce and untamed nature of a wolf. It's also served on a black charcoal bun, to represent the darkness and mystery often associated with wolves in folklore and mythology." Cindy offers me a sly wink, her lips curving into a teasing smile as she continues her explanation. "Is everyone out to undermine me tonight?" Sarah's brows lift in surprise. "You have a special hot dog for your festival?" "You could say something like that," Sally mutters. Sarah regards the strange concoction with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, but after a moment's hesitation, she lifts it to her lips and takes an experimental bite. An appreciative moan slips from her throat, the sound sending a jolt of pure need lancing through me. "It's delicious," she murmurs, her eyes slipping closed as she wraps her mouth around the black bun. "And spicy, just the way I like it." I groan, desire building. Cindy shoots me a wicked grin, her eyes dancing with unholy glee. "My brother also likes things a bit spicy, don't you, Mitch?" Heat floods my cheeks and my wolf snarls in outraged embarrassment. Sarah, for her part, flushes a delicate shade of crimson, her eyes widening as she struggles to formulate a response. Sarah begins to choke on her bite. I tap her back as she leans into me. I hold my water to her mouth, watching her lips close around the top and her throat bob when she drinks. Satisfaction bolts through me, knowing I am taking care of my mate, and I need to stifle another low growl vibrating in my chest. "I think my job here is done. Come on, Sally." Cindy grabs Sally and sweeps them both away with a merry laugh. Sarah regards me, her cheek still flushed with a delicate rosy hue. "I thank you for the water, and—" I don't need her to finish the thought, not when the sweet scent of her swirls around us, and the bond clearly vibrates with her desire. Have to have her. Have to. A deep driving need scours a red-hot path through me. With a low, rumbling growl, I surge forward, capturing Sarah's lips in a searing kiss that leaves no room for doubt or hesitation. She gasps against my mouth, her body going rigid with surprise for just a heartbeat before melting into my embrace, surrendering to the undeniable force of our connection. My wolf howls in triumph, reveling in the taste, the scent, the very essence of our mate enveloping us from all sides. She is everything we've been yearning for. the missing piece that will make us whole. Rational thought becomes a distant memory as my instincts take over, every fiber of my being focused on a single driving imperative: to claim, to possess, to bind us together. Sarah's fingers tangle in the fabric of my shirt as she presses against me with a desperation that mirrors my own. There's no hesitation, no trace of uncertainty in her movements, only a desperate hunger that resonates in perfect harmony with the demands of my wolf. The world around us falls away, the sights and sounds of the festival fading into insignificance. All that matters in this moment is the feel of her body against mine. With a growl of pure, unadulterated need, I hoist her into my arms, her legs winding around my waist. Sarah's fingers tangle in my hair, her nails scraping deliciously against my scalp as she captures my lips in a searing kiss that leaves me reeling. I think the crowd parts as I storm through. People scatter as I bolt for my cruiser. I don't know for sure, and I don't care. My mind is gone. I'm operating on pure driving instinct. I'm distantly aware that I buckle Sarah into the passenger seat, start the engine, and wind the vehicle through the streets of Willowbrook until I reach my cabin. Mate. Home. Rightness. Yes, my cabin. Our home. Where she always should be. I rip her from her seat. She clings to me as I stagger on the path and stumble through the front door. The moment the door slams shut behind us, the last vestiges of my control snap like a frayed tether. I pin Sarah against the nearest wall as my lips blaze a scorching trail along the slender column of her throat. She arches into me with a keening whimper. Mate. I growl, the word rumbling from the depths of my chest. Mine. Sarah's eyes fly open, her lush depths hazy with passion and something else, something deeper that resonates through the very core of her being. For a heartbeat, we simply stare at one another, the weight of that single word hanging heavy in the air between us. And then, as if a switch has been flipped, Sarah is surging forward, her mouth crashing against mine in a kiss that steals the very breath from my lungs. Yours, she whispers against my lips. The word laced with a depth of conviction that sends a shudder of pure, unadulterated ecstasy rippling through me. Always yours.
I'm barely coherent, but I'm still aware enough of my surroundings to know Mitch has taken me to his beautiful cabin nestled in the deep forest. The rustic timber walls, the rich, earthy scent of cedar permeates every nook and cranny. His scent is everywhere. Sandalwood and pure, spiced masculinity fill my every pore. The rational part of my brain hazes over as his lips blaze a scorching trail along the column of my throat. His calloused hands roam over the curves of my body with a possessive hunger, the details of our surroundings paling in comparison to the consuming need that burns through me. I can't properly describe the savage force that drives through me, the bone-deep compulsion to surrender to this man, to give myself over to the connection that binds us together in ways that defy comprehension. So I don't. Instead, I kiss him back with a desperation that borders on feverish, my fingers tangling in the soft strands of his hair as I press against the hard planes of his body with the unforgiving wall at my back. Mitch growls against my lips, a rumbling sound that resonates deep within me, and then, without warning, he sweeps me into his arms, carrying me up the stairs with long, purposeful strides. "So beautiful," he murmurs, his voice a low, gravelly rumble that sends shivers of awareness racing down my spine. My mate. My everything. The word hangs heavy in the air between us, laden with a weight and significance that resonates deep within the depths of my soul. A possessive endearment, a declaration of ownership and belonging that should send alarm bells ringing through me, but instead, I find myself melting into his embrace, surrendering to the profound rightness of whatever it is that filters through me. He takes me into a room and I glimpse a huge bed made up with a deep blue, soft duvet, limned in silvery moonlight. He guides me to the mattress and follows me down so that I'm on my back beneath him. Mitch's hands feathers over me, mapping the terrain of my body with a reverence that leaves me breathless. More. I ache for more. I don't realize I've actually spoken until his eyes flare with heat. Whatever you want, sweetheart. Whatever you need. He kisses me deeply, tongue sweeping between my parted lips. The taste of him is more potent than his scent. May I touch you? He rasped, his voice low and gravelly with barely restrained desire, as his smoldering gaze finds mine, silently seeking permission. Yes. There is no second guessing, no regrets making me think again. Mate, he growls, the word a primal incantation that sends a shudder of pure, unadulterated need rippling through me. Mine. For a fleeting moment, his eyes glow with an otherworldly light. Golden light swamps his face and over my body. But then he blinks, and the strange luminescence is gone, leaving me to wonder if it was nothing more than a trick of the light, or a figment of my overactive imagination. Not that it matters, not when he kisses me. A fleeting thought of Mark tries to intrude, a lingering shadow of heartache and betrayal, but it's quickly swept away as Mitch groans against my lips. We share a tender moment as we gaze into each other's eyes. My heart flutters with anticipation as Mitch and I express our deep affection for one another. The connection between us feels magical, like we're meant to be together. I care about you so much, I whisper. He smiles warmly. You mean everything to me. We embrace, sharing a sweet kiss. The word soulmate echoes in my mind, growing stronger with each passing moment until it fills my entire being. This feels right, like we were destined to find each other. Our hearts beat in perfect harmony as we hold each other close, savoring this beautiful moment of connection. Nothing else exists except the two of us and the pure love we share. When we finally part, we're both smiling, knowing we found something truly special in each other. Please, I need you, Mitch, all of you, I whisper. You have me, sweetheart. His gaze locks onto mine, and as we simply exist in this moment, another piece of myself clicks into place. A flicker of something more lurks in the depths of his eyes. For a fleeting instant, I see another pair of glowing amber eyes peering back at me at the same time. His chest rumbles and vibrations filter right through me. But as the world around us slowly bleeds back into focus, as the last tremors of our shared release slowly ebb away, I can't help but feel a sense of rightness, of completeness, that has never been in my life before. Mitch gathers me into his embrace. His arms encircle me, drawing me flush against the hard planes of his chest as we catch our breath. For several long moments, we simply exist in that cocoon of intimacy. There's no need for words, no urgency to shatter the tranquility that settles over us. My muscles relax, and sleep begins to pull me under until Mitch's deep voice breaks the silence. Sarah, there's something I need to tell you. Something important. A tendril of unease snakes its way through my haze of contentment. Every muscle in my body tightens. He's going to tell me something I don't want to hear. I should have known better. Nothing this good ever lasts. He really is too good to be true. A bolt of pure, unadulterated panic lances through me. This is where he tells me he has a wife, or that he needs someone who loves him for a life-saving kidney operation. Whatever it is, it's going to change the course of my life forever. Again, I have to resist the urge to recoil from his embrace, to put as much distance between us as possible in a desperate bid to protect what little remains of my fractured heart. I won't survive this. Sarah, I'm really Before he can finish the words, his muscles coil tight as his gaze takes on a faraway, haunted quality. Panic flares within me, sharp and insistent, and I reach out to him on instinct, my fingers brushing against the hard planes of his chest. Mitch? I whisper, my voice trembling with a mixture of concern and trepidation. What is it? What's wrong? For a heartbeat, he doesn't respond, his expression one of intense concentration, before his gaze snaps back into focus. I have to go, he rasps, the words laced with a hint of regret and something darker. Before I can formulate a response, before I can give voice to the thousands of questions that swirl through my mind, he's extracting himself from our intimate embrace and rising from the bed in a fluid motion. Stay here, he instructs, his tone brooking no argument as he moves about the room with purposeful strides, gathering his discarded clothing with efficient movements. Don't open the door for anyone, no matter what. I'll be back as soon as I can, but you have to promise me you won't go outside. Oh, okay. I'm too stunned by the abrupt shift in his demeanor to offer any sort of coherent response. In the span of mere heartbeats, the man who had held me so tenderly has transformed into a stranger, a force of nature whose very presence crackles with an undercurrent of barely restrained power, just like a wild wolf. And as he turns to go, pausing only to press a searing kiss to my brow, I can't help but feel a tendril of unease snake its way through me. Whatever has called him away, whatever unseen force has him teetering on the edge of some precipice that I don't understand, I fear it will be far more profound than I could ever imagine. And when he returns, when the truth is finally laid bare, will anything in my world will ever be the same again?
I bolt down my stairs, a tripped ward between our packlands and Ironjaw shrieking in the back of my mind. Panic lances through me, and I almost lose my footing when I reach ground level. My wolf snarls against the threat to our packlands. As Alpha, it's my duty to investigate any perimeter breach, no matter how ingrained my need to stay here and protect. I pray it's nothing more than a wolf straying across the line in tonight's run, a silly mistake. But my wolf's hackles are raised, lips peeled back. He senses danger and rages to defend our territory at all costs. Guilt wars with urgency as I bolt outside and let the shift take over my body. I embrace the heated prickle along my spine as thick fur sprouts across my skin. Bones grind and rearrange in the ancient, agonizing shift. My muzzle lengthens into a deadly toothed snout as I drop onto 4 powerful legs. In moments, I'm no longer man, but a giant, massive, russet wolf. I throw back my head and exhale a long breath, allowing my wolf's predatory instincts to take over. I breath in a cacophony of forest scents, crisp pine, loamy earth, Sarah's sweet floral musk lingering in our den. Narrowing to laser focus, I catch the tang of the tripped ward burning my nostrils. A menacing rumble builds in my broad chest as I dart into the forest and become a part of its shadows. The night forest surrounds me in shades of silver and shadow. Tall pines loom like silent sentinels, their feathery boughs swaying in the cold mountain breeze. In the distance, my packmate's celebration howls reach a raucous crescendo under the full moon's silvery glow, while my wolf self is all coiled aggression and intensity. I lope across the frozen ground, clawed paws eating up the distance in powerful strides. Icy streams and fallen logs are cleared in a series of effortless bounds as I race up the steep, unforgiving ridge toward the ward line. My breaths come in ragged pants, chest heaving against the thin air. Sweat soaks my fur as I push my body to its limits, but I can't stop. Not when I want to get back to my mate, not when I need to tell her who she really is. The bond is strengthening. She'll be able to feel it by now after what we've shared, even in her human body. I feel her anxiety, her confusion, and it's damn near doing me in. I want to tell her everything, show her who I really am. She needs to know everything now. She's ready. I reach the ward line, an invisible magical barrier that shimmers like a heat mirage along the boundary of our territory. Only my kind can detect the faint rippling and distortion in the air currents over the shining black oval wards that look like onyx stone. To my wolf's heightened senses, the wards thrum with a low, resonant hum. The enchantments woven into them crackle with barely perceptible sparks of energy, giving off an ozone tang that stings my sensitive nostrils. One ward lies in fragments, the intricate spellwork woven into it shredded into delicate ribbons. Fraying tendrils of disrupted magic hang in the air, the normally cohesive vibrations now discordant and jarring. They twist and unravel in dizzying, unpredictable patterns, sparking erratically like downed power lines. Even now, the bright blue will quickly fade to nothing now that the ward no longer holds any power. Where the ward line should be a seamless, unified, thrumming force, it now gapes with a black hole. Rage pounds through my veins at the violation of our territory's magical defenses. I sniff past the burnt ozone smell of dying magic to find the sharp, musky scent of an unfamiliar wolf. Male. Fiero. My hackles rise as a vicious growl rumbles from my throat. Rage pours off me in roiling waves, my powerful body trembling with the force of it. How dare this rogue breach our territory, our home, endanger my wolves with his crazed presence? The urge to rip and tear this threat apart with fang and claw is almost overpowering, but twined through the crimson haze of fury is icy fear. Fear for any of my packmates who may have already encountered this beast. Panic squeezes my heart at the thought of finding broken, bloodied bodies in our forest. A feral is unpredictable at best, the sword of death at worst. I have to find this intruder quickly before he can attack anyone, least of all my mate. Never before has life had the potential to hurt me so much. Giving myself over to the hunt, I flare my nostrils and track his scent. To my horror, the trail angles away from our forested packlands and cuts unerringly toward Willowbrook. Both branches scratch through my fur, down twigs crack under my feet. I bound over the mountain stream, sending rocks scattering when I land. I charge through the main street, thankfully empty, now that my pack are running through the forest. I dart past shops and Sally's empty diner, closed for the festival. The feral scent leads me on the road out of town. Icy dread claws at my pounding heart, as the feral scent trail snakes up the familiar winding mountain road. Toward my cabin, I put on a burst of panicked speed. My claws pop through rocks as I tear around each hairpin bend until I break through the last lot of trees and see my cabin. The rogue's rank, unsettling musk is everywhere, heavy over the porch, seeping through the shattered front door, hanging ajar on its hinges. He's there, inside, where I told my mate to stay and wait, alone and vulnerable. A guttural howl rips from my throat and shakes the shadows as I charge inside, only to be brought up short by a scream that rends the black night, high-pitched, fearful, and all too familiar. Sarah? Only she's not inside. She's somewhere in the forest where she has no protection. Anguished fury surges through me, and I throw back my head, releasing a hair-raising howl into the darkness. My focus narrows to a single, blazing need: get to my mate. Shred the feral who has deigned to take her. I crash through the underbrush in a frenzy, ignoring the slashing bites of pine branches and stinging lines of blood they leave on my face. Every shred of my being strains toward the sounds of her cries splintering the silent forest. At last I barrel into a small moonlit clearing and freeze, a choked whine catching in my throat. There she is, my beautiful, delicate Sarah, crouched against the slashed trunk of a gnarled old tree. Tears stream down her porcelain cheeks, green eyes stretched wide as the feral circles her in hungry, unpredictable loops. His jaws are distended in a permanent snarl, thick ropes of drool dripping from his lolling tongue to spatter on the ground. Ribs appear through his mangy, threadbare pelt with each heaving breath. Scabs mar his legs and along his flank, and when his head swivels toward me, his eyes are bright with insanity. He has no idea what he's doing. A part of me wonders how he was able to breach a witch's ward, find my cabin through the town and my mate, but then his legs tense, and he's arching through the air toward my mate. Her scream shreds my soul. In 2 massive strides I've crossed the distance between us. My paws leave the ground, my jaws clamping around his throat with bone-crushing force before he has a chance to touch a hair on her head. I use every ounce of my weight to bear down, driving his body into the ground. His eyes widen with shock and terror as I tear out his jugular in one savage motion, spraying his lifeblood in an obscene crimson arc. I release the ragged flesh from my jaws, watching impassively as his body gives one final jerking shudder before falling forever still. A pool of gore slowly spreads out around his matted fur, staining the pine needles beneath and filling the clearing with the thick, cloying scent of death. Lifting my muzzle to the glimmering moon, I allow a single mournful howl to pour from the depths of my soul. A mourning song for the violence, for the loss of control, and a feral's senseless death. When I turn to face Sarah, she's trembling against the rough bark, staring at me with horror reflecting in her eyes. Her hair is a wild, tangled mess. Blood splatters her pale skin and deep tremors rack her body. My ears flatten against my skull and I release a broken whine, desperate to convey the roiling storm of shame and anguish tearing through my soul, at revealing the other half of myself in such a brutal way, at her witnessing the true depths of violence I'm capable of unleashing with fang and claw. Even if I shift back to the human form she knows and loves, can she ever again look at me without a glimmer of fear and revulsion? Will she ever be able to separate the man from the beast whose unholy presence taints our bond? Or have I just destroyed any chance of her loving all of me?
A massive russet wolf stares at me, his tawny fur streaked with crimson. White socks accent his powerful legs, and a blaze marks his broad forehead. He's bigger than any wolf I've ever seen. Even standing on his hind legs, he'd tower over my 5.5-foot frame. Thick ropes of muscle ripple beneath his pelt with every subtle movement. His jaws are easily large enough to crush bones to splinters, but it's his eyes that transfix me most. Molten pools of yellow fire that bore straight through to my soul. I shrink back against the rough tree trunk. Sheer visceral terror has me trembling from head to toe. This beast just brutally slaughtered the wolf that dragged me out here. I watched in mute horror as he ripped out the other's throat with dagger-like fangs. And now those same razor-edged jaws are stained crimson, the beast's muzzle dripping gore. Will he turn those weapons on me next, now that I'm alone and utterly defenseless? To my shock, the wolf does the complete opposite. He drops to his belly on the ground, laying his massive body out in an unmistakable posture of submission. A pitiful whine slips through his bloodied jaws as he regards me with those eerie yellow eyes. Slowly, carefully, he stretches out his front legs and begins crawling toward me with his ears flattened against his skull. The move is so disarmingly domestic, so at odds with the brutality I've just witnessed, that it roots me to the spot in sheer incredulity. When he's no more than 6 feet away, the wolf bounces his tail against the ground in a distinctly canine gesture. He's wagging his tail at me, as if trying to make friends and convey he means no harm. I gape at the bizarre scene, not knowing whether to scream or whimper in fear. Even as this act tugs at some primitive place in my soul that finds it endearing, alarm bells blare through my mind. This is no domesticated pet. This is a wild, bloodthirsty beast who just took a life without remorse or mercy. And yet, there's something almost painfully familiar about those soulful yellow eyes. Something I can't be scared about, no matter how hard I try. My breath stutters in my lungs. I know those eyes. I've gotten hopelessly lost in their warm, molten depths while making love to. I reach out. Brush my fingers over the white blaze of fur on his forehead. The wolf stays still, letting me pet him. His fur is soft. So soft. The wolf startles me by releasing a strange, churring sound, almost like a content chuff. Before I can process what's happening, the massive beast shifts. What was once a hulking animal rapidly distorts and elongates, rearranging into thick, sinewy human limbs. Fur melts away and bronze skin ripples, sculpting into dense cords of bulging muscle and stark planes. It takes my addled brain long, agonizing seconds to understand what I'm witnessing. Where the wolf once crouched, now a powerfully built man is rising in a deep crouch before me. A very naked, incredibly masculine man with tousled chestnut hair and those same soulful, achingly familiar eyes, once yellow and now brown, streaks of gore paint stark lines across his sculpted torso and down one thick arm in a macabre abstract. My eyes stray over his body before flicking back up to see his face twisted with remorse. "Mitch," I croak in a strangled whisper, unable to tear my gaze from his nude, thickly muscled form. I should scream. I should run. By all accounts, this man, this thing, is a dangerous monster who just coldly murdered another living creature in the most savage way imaginable. My brain knows I should be fleeing in blind panic, yet my body refuses to obey. My muscles are frozen in place while rapid, panicked breaths scorch my lungs in ragged bursts. All I can do is stare at the man I've just made love to and try to make sense of this insanity. "Sarah?" Mitch's voice is a low, gravelly rumble utterly at odds with the tender baritone I'm used to. His eyes plead with me, begging for understanding or absolution. I can't tell which. "I know you're afraid. I know this is a shock, but you have to know I would never harm you. You're my mate. I'd die before letting anything hurt you." The word mate echoes through my mind like a silk caress, raising goosebumps and making my pulse thunder in my ears. My arms come over my chest, trying to cover my nudity before I realize I'm shaking my head in reflexive denial. This isn't happening. It can't be. I'm hallucinating or dreaming or something, because men can't just shapeshift into towering wolves. They can't rip out another being's throat and bathe themselves in its blood. Every panicked instinct is screaming at me to get away, but my feet remain rooted to the ground. I don't understand," I stammer, wishing my voice sounded braver and stronger instead of on the verge of hysteria. "What are you? What just happened?" Mitch rises slowly from his crouch, movements cautious and palms raised in a gesture of peace. His expression is more tender than I've ever seen it, as if trying to gentle a wild animal. "I'm a wolf shifter, Sarah," he murmurs in that same low rumble. "A human with the ability to transform into an animal, and you are my mate, my fated partner chosen by the wolf shifter goddess herself." I gape at him, at a loss for words. Part of me wants to dissolve into hysterical laughter or burst into terrified tears. Instead, I hear myself whispering in a trance-like daze. "Your mate?" A look of such profound yearning flashes across his face that it makes my already erratic heart skip a beat. "Yes," he breathes, taking a half step closer. I flinch and he stops like I'm a cornered rabbit about to bolt. "You are the other half of my soul, Sarah, the missing piece without which I will never be whole. I know you must feel the beginnings of our bond, even if you don't recognize it yet for what it is." I swallow hard, my throat clicking dryly. Part of me desperately wants to deny his words, to insist he's utterly insane. But how can I, when an ember of something molten yet ineffable flares inside me? When a place inside me clicks into alignment, something spiritual that's never felt quite right until this very moment. Subconsciously, my fingers drift to the streaks of blood splashed over my throat as images of his powerful, furred body ripping out another wolf's life blaze through my mind. My chest seizes with the beginnings of hyperventilation. I feel nothing," I force out in a thin whisper, hoping it will make this madness stop and knowing with sick certainty that I'm lying. "I think you've got the wrong person. I'm not your mate." The devastated look that washes over Mitch's expression makes my heart lurch in a way I can't begin to describe. "No," he rasps hoarsely, agony coating the single word. "No! Fate never gets it wrong, Sarah. You were destined to be my mate the moment you were born. Nothing can change that. Not even denial." A frantic giggle bubbles up my throat at his words, quickly spiraling into a panted wheeze. Everything in me screams that the universe has made some catastrophic mistake. Yet that newly awakened part of my soul resonates with the ringing truth in his statement. It knows without doubt that he speaks only fact, no matter how insane it seems on the surface. I clutch my head in my hands, hysteria bubbling up and threatening to overwhelm me. "No!" I choke, rocking on my heels like a broken thing. No, this isn't real. This isn't happening." Because the alternative is too huge for my fragile human mind to accept. I'm distantly aware of Mitch trying to speak again. to offer reassurance or explanations that will never make sense. All I can do is struggle to breathe past the crushing weight in my chest. When I finally pry my eyes open again, there's a look of such profound desolation on his face that it pierces me to my core. It's the anguish of a mate rejected, an agony I can see mirrored in his devastated eyes. I can't stay here. I can't face this impossible reality and the rapidly splintering shards of my old life. Choking on a sob, I whirl on shaking legs and stumble in the direction of the cabin, of home and safety and anything resembling normalcy. "Sarah, wait!" Mitch's anguished shout follows on my heels as I half run, half stumble my way through the shadowed trees. He moves to catch up, and then seems to think better of it when I flinch away from his reaching hand. I shove through the door of the cabin and up the stairs, bile rising in my throat when I see the rumpled sheets of the bed where we made love, not even an hour ago. My entire world has been turned inside out in the span of a day. The man I thought I knew has been revealed as some kind of supernatural being, something not human and therefore something I should be afraid of. Yet all I feel is a yawning ache of confusion and denial when I remember the word mate, and that fleeting sense of absolute rightness that came with it, like a part of me that was always out of kilter clicked into place. I whirl at the sound of Mitch's tread on the stairs, his expression utterly heartbroken. "Sarah," he pleads hoarsely, "please let me explain." "Explain what?" I snatch up my clothes, shoving my legs into my jeans and wrapping my shirt around me when my shaking fingers refuse to do up the buttons. "That you're some kind of monster? That you just slaughtered another wolf?" He flinches at the venom in my words, eyes reflecting a soulful agony that guts me. "I'm not a monster. At least, I never wanted to be seen as one in your eyes. That wolf was feral. He didn't know what he was doing. He would have taken you out into the forest and what, Mitch? Would have torn you limb from limb. You're all—" My voice cracks like glass shattering on the last word. I can't bring myself to say it out loud, to put that label on the people I've come to care about so quickly. Mitch takes a half step toward me, but I instinctively cringe back, shaking my head in denial. His face twists with naked pain at the automatic rejection. "We're wolf shifters, yes," he says in a toneless rasp. "Both human, and something more. I never lied to you, Sarah. I just hadn't gotten to that part of the truth yet." A hysterical, breathless giggle bubbles up my throat. I clamp a hand over my mouth to stifle the slightly mad sound, tears burning tracks down my cheeks. "This is all completely insane. I can't do this." I won't look at Mitch. Can't look at him and see the inhuman secret roiling behind his handsome face. "Sarah." His voice is strands from cracking, wrapping around my name like a physical caress. I flinch away from the tenderness, from the sense of rightness it invokes. "I have to leave," I force out, choking on the hot knot of tears lodged in my throat. "I have to think, to understand. Except I don't think I'll ever be able to understand this madness. To accept that the world, my world, is not what it seems and never has been." "Please." Mitch tries again, reaching for me like a man grasping at air. I shake my head mutely, shrinking away from the naked yearning in his eyes. From the part of me that wants nothing more than to let myself be soothed and gathered into the shelter of his embrace. "I'm sorry," I force out in a choked rasp, dashing away tears with the back of one hand. "I'm so sorry, but I can't. I turn and flee before I can shatter into a million pieces. Mitch doesn't try to stop me, doesn't call out again as I bolt down the stairs and out the cabin door, with the crisp night air clawing at my face. Wolves watch me with glowing eyes as I stumble down the gravel driveway in blind instinct. Shadowy, silent forms that make my pulse thunder with fear and incredulity. Except what did I have to fear when the most dangerous creature I know is the one I've just left behind? Up ahead, I see two dark forms detach from the tree line. One, a sleek, petite wolf, and the other broader, more solidly built. My breath catches in my throat as the two figures shift in a rapid, organic flow. One moment they're wolves, the next, they're Sally and Cindy, emerging from the shape-shifting transition as easily as pulling off a coat. I pull up short, staring at them in dazed disbelief as they approach with expressions of heartbreaking sadness and regret. "Sarah," Sally begins, her normally cheerful tone subdued. She holds up both hands in a placating gesture, as if trying not to startle a spooked animal. "We know this is a lot to take in right now, but please, don't go. At least let Mitch explain." A dry, rasping sound that might be a laugh hitches in my throat. "Explain?" I echo, my voice dull and lifeless. "How can he possibly explain being... I can't bring myself to say the words out loud. "A shifter," Cindy supplies in her usual blunt manner, but her tone holds a wealth of compassion. "Just like the rest of us in Willowbrook. I know it's a shock, but this ability has been in our blood for generations, Sarah. We were born this way, just as you were born human." Human. The word falls from my lips with more bitterness than I intend, because suddenly, that label feels more like a weakness, a lack. Sally steps closer, her expression softening further. "Mitch will be an amazing mate for you, Sarah. He's a good alpha who will love you with everything he has. You two are fated, the first new mating pair we've had in Willowbrook in over 20 years. "Mating," I mumble numbly, uncomprehending. My gaze skates over Sally's shoulder to where Mitch has appeared in the open doorway, his eyes reflecting twin wells of naked hope and longing. The sight lances straight through me, rousing that same profound sense of rightness, of meant to be. I tear my gaze away, jaw clenched against the disorienting vertigo of having my entire reality upended in the span of a few earth-shattering moments. "You're a blessing to us, Sarah, a savior for our pack's bloodlines," Cindy continues, her tone taking on a wistful edge. I flinch at the weight of expectation in her words. "I'm no one's savior," I retort, the words tasting like ash and iron on my tongue. "I'm not even sure I can save myself most days." Tears blur my vision, hot and stinging as they streak down my cheeks in runnels. I swipe them away with trembling fingers, blinking against the torrent as my heart shatters into a million fragments inside my ribcage. I can't do this," I force out in a whisper choked with despair. "I'm sorry, but I have to leave. I have to go and try to make sense of whatever this madness is." A muscle chords along Mitch's jaw, but he gives me a jerky nod of acceptance. "If that's what you need, then I understand. I don't want to imprison you here, Sarah. Not when your freedom is what I cherish most about you." The words twist like a dagger in my heart. I curl my arms around my midsection, feeling like I might shatter into fractals. When Mitch moves toward me, I retreat a stumbling step. He freezes, hurt and resignation flickering across his striking features. In silence, he turns and retrieves a set of keys from the pocket of his jeans I notice he has donned, extending the keys in my direction. "Take my truck. Drive it to the Wolf's Bite Tavern and get your car. I'll pick up the truck later. And when you go and find your new home..." A look of such profound pride flashes across his expression that it rocks me even further off kilter. "Send me a copy of whatever bestseller book you write. I'll be the first to celebrate it." A harsh, gulping sob escapes my constricted throat as I snatch the keys, tears pouring down my face in heated streams. I turn on wobbling legs and flee toward the truck, every ragged footfall leaving a piece of my shattered heart and soul behind on the packed earth. I don't look back at the murmurs of comfort Sally and Cindy offer Mitch, or the resonant howls that swell from the surrounding forest. All I can do is climb into the truck and let the roar of the engine drown out the dissonant keening of my fracturing soul. The drive to the Wolf's Bite passes in a blur of unshed tears and disorientation. I pull up to the darkened hotel, staring sightlessly at my lonely little Honda Civic parked all by itself, bruised and battered and looking so lonely. Just like me. With numb detachment, I park the cruiser and reclaim my own vehicle. I sit gripping the steering wheel and finally allow the dam to burst. Hot, racking sobs claw their way free, tearing past my lips in ragged gasps as the events of the past hour blaze in vivid, kaleidoscopic bursts. Mitch's gentle lovemaking, the first to unwind me from years of self-repression, the frantic urgency as he raced off to investigate a threat to his pack, my terror at being dragged into the forest by that feral wolf, certain I would be torn to shreds, only to be saved by Mitch revealing his more primal, monstrous aspect. He'd killed an insane creature that would have killed me. He hadn't done it lightly. He'd only sprung once the wolf had gone for me with a killing lunge. I squeeze my eyes shut, hunching over the wheel as another wave of sobs shudders through me. How can I reconcile Mitch with the massive wolf? How can I accept that the most tender lover I've ever known is the same creature capable of such violence to defend me? How can I even begin to believe that we are fated, destined by some mythical cosmic force to be soul-bound as mates in a way far more profound and permanent than any human marriage? I slam the heel of my palm against the steering wheel in a childish tantrum fueled by disbelief and frustration. My entire understanding of the world has been warped beyond recognition. The rules of reality no longer apply, if they ever truly did. I don't know what's true anymore. What's real and what's madness? All I know is I can't stay in this insular little pocket where the supernatural reigns, where the line between human and animal is hopelessly blurred. Even if it means leaving behind the only man who ever truly saw me and cherished me for exactly who I am. I leave Willowbrook sobbing uncontrollably, the Honda Civic's tires kicking up plumes of dust in my wake. Hot tears blur my vision as I peel out onto the main road, Mitch's anguished face seared into my mind's eye. The memory of him standing alone and watching me drive away after I utterly shattered his heart is an agonizing brand on my soul. I drive for days in a tear-stained, sleepless haze, the miles blurring together. Thank God I scraped up a few dollars I found in my car's console to pay for gas. All I know is I need to put as much distance as possible between myself and Willowbrook, that beautiful, quaint little town where the lines between human and animal blur. Eventually I find myself in a large, indifferent city. Towering skyscrapers loom over crowded streets packed with people, rushing along with bowed heads. The noise and chaos should be comforting in its familiarity, but it only makes me feel more hollowed out and alone. I am nothing but a cavernous shell, an empty husk of the woman I was. I left my heart in a tattered, bloodied lump at Mitch's feet. My insides have been carved out with a rusted spoon and are nothing more than a bloodied mess. I miss him. I miss his warmth, his caring, the way he looked at me as though he saw nothing else. It's more than anyone has ever seen me before, or probably will ever again. I fight the urge to run back and fall into his arms, to give myself over to the magnetic pull that twists me up inside. But I can't go back. Not after leaving him so devastated. Not when my mind is still such a tangled, confused mess of doubts and fears. The day I arrive in this nameless city, I pay for some groceries, having forgotten that Mark has cleaned out my account. I am shocked when my card isn't declined. I fire up my banking app with shaking fingers to find $10,000 inexplicably deposited into my account. Mitch. It has to be him. I shattered his world and he's still trying to take care of me. I cry for another day, feeling like the worst kind of person. Eventually I pick myself up and find an apartment to rent above an elderly woman's garage for a month, counting every penny to stretch Mitch's funds. A week later, I receive a text from Mark saying he's returned every penny he stole and to never contact him again. Mitch has to be behind that too. There's no way Mark would have returned any money to me otherwise. Heart aching and pounding, I go to call Mitch, only to find no trace of him online. After a frantic search online, there's no record of Willowbrook either. My situation grows more real. I might never see Mitch again. My choices have been stripped away, the path decided for me by circumstance and magic out of my control. I tumble into a suffocating depression, the weight of my regrets and fears dragging me down into an abyss where I can barely eat or sleep. There is a constant, nagging tug in my soul toward Willowbrook, toward Mitch and the bond we shared. But he may never want me back, after how I hurt him. I made my choice when I fled, and I have to live with the consequences. So I do the only thing that stirs any flicker of life or interest. I write. I pour every agonizing feeling, every moment of love and terror and confusion out onto the page. I funnel my shredded heart, my fracturing sense of self, into the narrative as both an exorcism and a love letter. With each new chapter, each day that passes, the heavy veil that has blinded me lifts, and the world becomes clearer and I see things through a new lens. Mitch isn't a monster. He was protecting me from a very real threat. If he hadn't exploded into action, I would be dead. His wolf side is a part of who he is, not something separate to be feared. It was my own doubts and panic that sent me fleeing when Mitch simply wanted to share his truth with me. My breath shudders and sends a renewed flood of tears streaming down my face, because now I know. I understand what happened to me from that very first moment I laid eyes on the sheriff of Willowbrook. I've fallen in love with Mitch. Utterly, unequivocally, with every battered shard of my soul. My doubts let fear convince me otherwise, but now I see it with every bone in my body. Mitch is my destiny, despite the impossible circumstances that brought us together. It is fate, after all. Things became crazy before he had a chance to explain it all to me. I should have had more faith in the bond blossoming between us instead of letting it wither because of my own insecurity. Mitch saved me, and then he let me walk away. He did all of that because he loves me back, and I have to see him again. I have to beg for his forgiveness. For a second chance. I love Mitch and I need to be with him. Now, and for every aching, wonderful eternity to come. I want to shower him with every ounce of adoration I possess until he realizes I love him more ferociously than I ever thought possible. For the first time in endless aching weeks, I come alive. I'm awake and aware in a way that sparks every nerve ending with anticipation and purpose. I print off the final draft of my manuscript, the book that I know will be a bestseller not because of the writing, but because of the heart behind it, the hero at its core, whose devotion and inner light shine through every word on every page. Because I was inspired knowing what true love really is. I pack my belongings, thanking the kindly old landlady for her patience as I pay the remainder of the rent. I get in my car and simply drive. I backtrack as far as my blurry memory of those first few panicked days can manage, searching for anything familiar, but the roads all seem to lead in aimless, repeating circles. I come to a T intersection bathed in the fiery glow of dusk, and realize with a sinking feeling that I'm utterly lost. My phone's GPS is useless, unable to get a signal worth anything. Gripping the steering wheel hard enough to sting, I squeeze my eyes shut and simply feel. Feel for that blazing bond burning inside me, and there it is. I find it so easily that I can't believe I ever doubted it was there. It's warm and golden, glowing like a rope of sunlight tugging at the anchors of my soul. It thrums with a sense of home and welcome, of cherished belonging in a way I've never known. This is love in its purest, most divine form. My breath catches as the bond tugs, urging me to turn right at the intersection, to follow the gleaming thread back to its source. Back to the other half of my soul, waiting for me in Willowbrook. I turn onto the road that feels so undeniably right, letting the bond guide me with nothing else but faith.
Day falls into night, then day again. I watch the sun pass until stars dot the night sky. The moon shines and then disappears when the gray light of dawn wipes it away. It's day again, and I go through the same motions I did the day before, and the day before that. My world is a colorless hollow husk. The same as me. My wolf is silent. He's withdrawn into the deepest recesses of our shared soul. He blames himself for the loss of our mate. His unending guilt is a constant sickly presence, gnawing at the edges of my consciousness. Night ends. Another day begins. I get up from the bed I've lain in all night, shower, dress, and sit in my office. Sally finds me slumped behind my desk, where I stare at scattered papers and reports I can't even begin to focus on. She wordlessly sets down a burger and fries from the diner, but the smell only churns my empty stomach into nausea. "Mitch, you have to eat," she says gently, worry creasing her brow. "The town can't have its sheriff and alpha wasting away to nothing." I grunt a hollow thanks. She's right. My clothes hang looser with every passing day, but I can't seem to care. I know I need to eat, but I can't seem to muster the appetite. I look up into her familiar face, see the sympathy that radiates from her. I had everything when I found my mate, and I ruined it all in one God's damned night. Sally's expression softens and she lays a comforting hand on my shoulder, giving it a sympathetic squeeze. "Oh, sugar, you didn't ruin a thing. Fate has a way of working itself out, you'll see." I nod numbly at her platitudes, but they roll off me. Even if Sarah did return to me, how could she ever truly love all of me? The man and the wolf, whose animal nature goes against everything her human mind understands. Sally pats my shoulder once more. "Just try and eat something, okay? I'll leave the grill on for you after my shift if you feel like joining the land of the living tonight." I mumble thanks, knowing there's no chance in hell I'll be seeking company. Hell, I'm no company to keep. Sally seems to realize the futility and gives me one last worried glance before letting herself out. As soon as the door closes behind her, my wolf chuffs wearily in the back of my mind. Lost mate. He sounds tired, sick even. I reach out to give him comfort. "It's not you, not your fault." He doesn't listen, just retreats to the back of my mind until I can barely feel him. I know the warning signs of what's happening to me all too well. Wolves don't do well without finding their mates, let alone losing them. He's on the verge of going feral, of completely divorcing his consciousness from mine. If that happens, I'll become feral. The thought makes me call out to Zane, my beta, and ask him to come into my office. When the burly wolf shifter appears, I spit it out before I can reconsider. "If I go feral, you'll have to cull me," I state flatly. "I might not be that far away." Zane's eyes widen in shock, and he shakes his head vehemently. "Like hell I will. We'll find another way, some way to reach you before it goes that far." "And if we can't?" I say, feeling more tired with each passing moment. "Culling a feral is the humane thing to do, Zane, especially as my wolf is an alpha. He can't become out of control. It will put everyone here in too much danger. You know the laws as well as I do." He frowns, clearly troubled, but doesn't argue further, then looks up at me, choosing his words carefully. "You really think you'll be like the feral you culled?" I stiffen at his words, the first inkling of unease prickling along my nape. "What do you mean?" Something about him was a little off. Zane spreads his hands in a placating gesture. "Ferals don't come into populated town areas. They sure as hell don't go sniffing out closed cabins, prying open locked doors and windows to get inside. And they definitely don't seek out a sleeping, vulnerable mate before just waiting around for the alpha to show up." The bottom drops out of my stomach as realization washes over me in a sickening wave. He's absolutely right. That whole scenario makes no sense for a typical feral attack. One look at Zane's grim expression tells me the thought has occurred to him as well. I've been so consumed with myself, I haven't done my job as sheriff or alpha. That should have been the first thing I noticed. The hairs along my arms and nape prickle. Zane is right. Ferals have lost the ability for higher thought. They act on instinct alone, little more than rabid wild wolves themselves, albeit wolves that reap a lot more damage. That feral didn't want to kill Sarah, not at first anyway. He wanted me to find them together, to send me into a blind rage before what? Taking me out while I was distracted, protecting my mate. But why? But before I can articulate any of these swirling theories, movement outside catches my eye. I glance up just in time to see a small navy blue Honda Civic drawing into the parking lot in front of the station. The driver's door opens, and a curvy figure unfolds, long red familiar curls spilling over a green sweater as she glances around uncertainly. It takes a long moment for me to make sure I'm not hallucinating. Sarah? My mate. She's back. I'm frozen for a single gut-punched moment. She looks thinner, paler, with bruised half-moons beneath her eyes, but still the most beautiful woman I've ever laid eyes on. Then her gaze lifts and locks onto mine through the window, piercing and electric even at a distance. My chair clatters over as I surge upright, staggering for the door in desperation. Zane is forgotten, the whole world narrowing to this singular, shining point of light in the darkness of my existence. Sarah, I breathe as I stumble out onto the sidewalk. I search her expression for any hint of fear or revulsion, but there's only wary longing and heartfelt sadness reflecting in her eyes. Gathering my tattered shreds of hope, I start toward her again. You came back. I want to add, to me, but I can't articulate the words. Sarah hesitates. Are you sure you even want to see me again? Her voice is barely above a whisper, laced with trepidation and self-doubt. After how I left, you should be furious with me. Confusion wars with the tidal wave of relief and longing crashing through me. Want to see you? Sarah, seeing you here is the answer to every dream, every prayer I've had since you walked away. I take another tentative step closer, drinking in the delicate slope of her jaw, the familiar blend of wildflowers and warm summer rain scent of her calming the surging emptiness inside me. I want nothing more than to see you with every fiber of my being. Her teeth worry at her lip, catching the tender flesh. Is that why you put money in my account? So I'd have to come back to pay you back? My stomach plummets at the implication that she's only here out of some misguided sense of obligation, not by her own choice to embrace our bond. No, sweetheart. I couldn't let you leave town with nothing to your name, not after that bastard cleaned you out. The thought of her trying to start over with nothing makes me grind my teeth in quiet fury. I had to make sure you were taken care of, even if you never wanted to see me again. Sarah's eyes widen at the vehemence in my tone before softening. So I guess it was you who got Mark to give me back my money too, huh? I probably shouldn't be surprised. A rueful smirk tugs at the corner of my mouth as I remember phoning the little weasel and threatening every legal consequence I could dredge up. Having friends in high places, like witches who work out in the human world, made backing up my threats too easy. Kathy was more than happy to cast a little incentive spell Mark's way when I told her what Mark had done to you. I hear it on good authority he'll be celibate for about a year, whether he wants that or not. Sarah huffs out a surprised chuckle. Should have had her make it 2 years if you ask me. She shakes her head, squaring those slender shoulders as if bracing herself. But that's not why I'm here, Mitch. I came to see you. The words are like a physical blow, momentarily stealing my breath. This is it. The dressing down I've been dreading and internally lacerating myself over for weeks. I steel myself for the onslaught of justifiable anger at how thoroughly I broke her trust, shattered any chance at the happiness we could have shared. I'm not prepared for the ragged emotion lacing Sarah's voice, or the shimmer of unshed tears in her warm green eyes. I need to apologize for leaving you like I did when I should have known better. I should have trusted you, Mitch, but most of all, she swipes angrily at the dampness spilling over her lashes. Most of all, I should have trusted myself and the bond between us. None of this would have happened if I'd just had a little faith. My wolf stirs, emerging from his self-imposed exile. He sits up straighter as Sarah continues, more alert and engaged than he's been in weeks. This whole time, I've been so angry at myself for not listening to my own heart, for letting my stupid doubts sabotage the most precious, miraculous thing fate has ever given me, for letting a scumbag like Mark make me think the worst of myself. Her lower lip trembles, but her gaze remains locked fiercely on mine. Pleading for understanding, for a second chance I would have walked through fire to grant. I don't know if you can ever forgive me for that, but I owe you the biggest apology of all." She reaches into her car and retrieves a sheath of neatly stacked paper. Then wordlessly she extends it toward me. What is this? My breath catches in my throat as I read the title on the top page, Wolf Fated. "Sarah, you wrote a book? About wolf shifters?" I glance up at her, reeling between wonder and disbelieving awe. Sarah gives me a small nod. I owe the biggest apology to your wolf, Mitch. More than anyone, it was him I gravely underestimated and misjudged that night." A low, subvocal rumble emanates from my chest as my wolf makes himself known before he explodes through a forced shift. My tattered clothing flutters to the ground as he launches himself towards Sarah in a flurry of inhuman speed and motion. I try to harness him back, but Sarah laughs when my wolf dances around her like a jubilant puppy, nuzzling and licking at her hands and face with unbridled affection. "Thank you for protecting me," she murmurs, cupping his broad muzzle and running her fingertips over the white star on his forehead. "That feral would have killed me if you hadn't stopped him. Thank you for being there, for being my real protector when I was too blind to see it." An ear-splitting howl of pure, unbridled joy splits the air as my wolf rears back, every sinewy line of his body exuding elation. Sarah stumbles back with a breathless laugh at his exuberance, her entire being shining with happiness. Then, in a sinuous shift of energy, the great russet beast dissolves and remolds into my human form once again, leaving me standing naked in front of my mate. Sarah's cheeks flush as her widened gaze rakes over every hard line and corded muscle of my body. The scent of her desire blooms thick and intoxicating in the charged air between us. She raises her hand and clenches her fist before she can touch me. "Thank you. Doesn't seem enough for everything you've done for me, but I realize now that leaving was the biggest mistake of my life. Despite my doubts and fears, I love you. Truly, deeply love every exquisite part of your soul, both man and wolf. I can only beg that someday you might find it in your heart to forgive me for throwing that all away." Her words race through my entire being, igniting sparks of joy and renewal, and cutting away the bleak heartache in an instant. She turns then as if preparing to leave. I can't bear the thought of letting her slip through my fingers again. "I won't." I reach out, snagging her slender wrist and pulling her to my chest with infinite gentleness. "When do I get the chance to speak, To tell you how I feel about your being here, about having you back in my life?" Sarah's breath hitches, resignation dimming the fire in her eyes as she braces for a harsh dismissal, for me to echo the anguish and heartbreak she's inflicted upon herself. But all I feel is soaring, unbridled euphoria at having her warm body against mine, at her second chance I never dared dream would be granted. I place my fingertips on the racing pulse in her neck. The soft warmth of her pulse thrums beneath my calloused fingertips. "I love you, sweetheart, more than the air in my lungs or the wolf in my soul. My love isn't born solely from the sacred bond between fated mates, although that greatly enhances and elevates the depth of what we share. My love comes from the core of who I am, both the man and the wolf, who will forevermore cherish and protect his mate above all else in this world or the next." Fresh tears spill over her lashes and slide down the elegant sweep of her cheeks. With a feather-light caress, I brush them away. "I love you, Sarah." I gather her pliant form against me and revel in how perfectly we fit together. "I've loved you from the moment I first saw you, and will love you until my final breath. I'll love you between now and then with everything I am. I love every little thing about you with my whole heart. I love you because you're my mate and the woman I choose. I love you now and forever." A breathless giggle sob escapes her, and she winds those slender arms around my neck, burying her face against the thundering pulse in my throat. "You only have to tell me you love me once for me to know it's true." I brush the pad of my thumb over the swell of her. "It will never be enough. I'll tell you every day for the rest of our lives together, until you never doubt how thoroughly, how completely you've claimed every facet of my soul as yours." Sarah's laughter slowly fades, her expression sobering into one of naked vulnerability and trust, one that steals the very breath from my lungs. "I believe you, Mitch," she vows, cradling my face in her palm with infinite tenderness. "With every part of my heart and soul I believe." She believes in me, in us, and the profound destiny that links our souls together. Slowly, reverently, I dip my head until our brows are nearly brushing and our mingled breaths merge in the air between us. "Then allow me to show you just how cherished you are," I rasp, my lips a hair's breadth from her lush, waiting mouth. "Allow your mate to lavish you with the soul-deep worship you've always deserved." Sarah's breathing is ragged, eyes flickering shut as she arches toward me in wordless acceptance. A low, needy sound escapes the back of her throat, both a plea and a demand. "Take me home, my mate," she manages in a breathy whisper, "and this time, I swear on every star in the heavens, I won't run from anything except into your arms. Now and forever, we have each other." With a fierce growl of possession, I seal my mouth over hers in a searing brand of a kiss. My mate is home with me, safe in the shelter of my embrace, loving each other, sharing a life together, fated forever.
Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed the story, hit subscribe so you never miss a new tale. Your support means the world. See you in the next chapter.